You put it into waiting mode. You schedule it.
I did.
Then you should have a link.
It doesn't show up as a link. I don't have a proper channel. I'm sorry. YouTube doesn't acknowledge it unless I press enter.
Oh, you don't have that setting yet, I guess?
I have that setting.
I don't. Oh, I gotta fix that. We don't need that.
Jen's just a boomer.
I'm not a boomer.
You're right. You're a girl.
YouTube just doesn't like me. YouTube's just like, you know what? You're not important on the grand scheme of things. So,
you're not a booby streamer, so you're just not important.
Pretty much. And I don't even have the clauses that get you out of that. You know, like I don't have like person of color. I'm not a feminist. I'm not gay. All I really have are the tit and tatas. You know. And that's sad because that means I'm only a level higher than you.
Yeah. Oh, there's Data.
Oh, is he here?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Let me add you in, sir. All right. So I can't shill anything on the Discord while I have my meme up. My lovely spicy meme.
Yeah.
I mean that'll change as it is. It's just once I take that down, I have to stop sharing the screen.
Just schedule it for like 2:40. Then you can exit out. You can get prepared, and you can have the link. No point in starting if we can't have the link.
Yeah. I have no idea how to stream. I've never done it on my channel before, so.
It's not that bad. It's just I don't know what it is with YouTube. Like my other channel, which is older, like I've had that one since the inception of YouTube. I never used it for anything. So all the stuff that I'm doing on this one here, I never had to do on the other one. You know, so I don't know.
They say you should stream every time you feel like it, or you might get kidney stones.
Well, that's what they want you to do. It's just that it doesn't work like that, you know? Because then you end up like the streamer who just does all the streams and there's no content to their streams. So, well, at least for me. Let's see if I'm actually posting the right one. Because sometimes I will shill my stuff on Twitter and it's like, oh, what are you sharing? Delete that quick. All right. So I've gone as far as I can go in this sense. If you guys want to help share the stream, that works too. But you know what? If it's just us four talking to each other, then that's okay. It's just like Discord, but on the internet.
Yeah.
It's a double internet.
Well, I'd share it if I had a link.
Well, it's live right now. I'm already on the channel.
Oh, well then. I guess I'll just do it my own damn self, Jen.
Hold on, let me share the.
What is this, self-serve?
There, I put it in the StreamYards thing.
Drop it in the minions real quick.
Thanks, Rebel. My spicy meme balls. I should do that. I should make some memes based off of meatballs, and they're my meme balls.
That's a spicy meatball.
Right? Rolls off the tongue nicely. But then you know what? Someone would be like, "You're appropriating somebody else's culture," because we know for a fact you ain't Italian. And I'd be like, "Neither are you. You were born in the U.S."
Thanks for sharing it in the live chat, not the private chat. But hey, it works.
Wait, I put it in comments. Oh,
Yeah,
private chat comments. Okay, well then you know what? I just shared my own channel with my own channel, so it works.
Mm-hmm. It's channelception.
Yeah.
No, you sound a little stuffy, Jen.
I'll just share it everywhere. Am I sounding a little stuffy?
You're
I probably am. I did have a cap. Well, the first steps to a cap done yesterday, and I'm, you know, at the time I wasn't mad because I think I was just stoned enough from whatever it is that they inject into your teeth to make you not hurt. That I wasn't really thinking about it at the time, but ever since I had my root canal, which has been about, I'd say, 5 years now, right? And the doctors are like, okay, we need to give you a cap. We need to give you a cap. And I'm like, they couldn't give me the cap the first year because they were like, well, they don't really do it that way. I was like, okay. I was like, I didn't want to get a cap because it's expensive. What can I do to hold off on it until at least I know I can do it?
Propellant.
And so basically what's happened is every time I've gone to a dentist since the root canal, they're just slowly like grinding down on that tooth, And then like the last time I went in, they're like setting up for this cap because I finally talked my mom into loaning me the money to get it done, just because I'm like, listen, if I could have pulled the tooth back when I had the root canal, I would have just pulled the tooth. But they're like, it's a molar. You're like 32 years old. You should keep the tooth, because it's better for your ability to digest food and your overall health, and it's almost like they force the issue. It's almost like they've been grinding on the tooth to the point where like, okay, well now I've got like a stub in the back of my mouth where I have to have a cap because there's no tooth there anymore.
Jen, you can't handle the tooth.
No, it's just now I know how dentists actually work, It's like if you guys wanted to sit down with my mom, because my financial situation, like they've known for a while that like I haven't been going to the dentist because like 10 years ago when I had all these issues with the root canal, having to set up to get it done. And I'm just like, listen, I've been on financial, like, living like paycheck to paycheck for a long time. I can't pay you this, And I'm like talking to my mom. I'm like, listen, Mom, I don't like asking you for big loads of money, but like, 10 years ago, I could have paid you off already. And it's just like, if you didn't want to deal with it, you could have just talked me into pulling it because I would have just pulled it, It's just whatever the easiest solution is that's going to have the better overall health benefits for me in the long run was what my decision making was based off of,
Yeah.
And chewing can be fun.
Right? It's and ever since, like, I mean, it's just one of those things where when you're young and you make poor decisions about your teeth and you realize that even if you didn't make those poor decisions off of your teeth, you probably still would have had problems with your teeth because nobody doesn't eat at all. But yeah, so that was my rant, and that's all I got to say about dentists. It's just like, okay, listen, sometimes you just have to level with people when you need to get the work done, all right? Sometimes the whole like niceness thing, you need to scrap that aside and just be like, listen, bitch, you either get the teeth removed or you get this work done, and that's all there is to it. Because otherwise, the whole grinding down of the tooth thing, it's childish almost. And like every dentist that comes along, they're like, you know what? I don't think the guy ground down enough. Like, really? A mechanic can go from one car to the other car and still work on it, Why is it different when it comes to your teeth or your bones or whatever? I don't get it. All right.
Sounds like a bad dentist.
Dentistry is a big scam anyways.
Well, I think it kind of is, and it's one
Most
of those,
of it, yeah.
So it's one of those things where like I know that there's health benefits to your teeth, like there is, like they do control a lot of what goes on with your health, but like they just want more money out of you, or they just want to bring you back in, and it's just like you guys are gonna fail in this industry because you can't pull in people who have low income, who probably actually are the ones who need your help more than anything. People with money just get the work done. They just do it. Anyway, let's move on from teeth because that just pisses me off. So it's in my mouth, and it's like every time I touch it with my tongue, I'm just sitting there like feeling a little bit more bitter because I'm like, you motherfuckers. But Functional actually did some work and he actually got some proper articles, which is good because all I did was watch the Rebel media Wexit movement, which was
play Stardew Valley.
Yeah, that too.
Nothing wrong with a little gaming.
There's just every article I've had since, it's just a repeat of the same stuff. So
yeah. Luckily, I found some doozies, but starting off, obviously, oh my god, I just had a major brain fart right there. Obviously, I'm sure you guys have heard about the whole Don Cherry thing up here in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the media is just kind of grasping onto it because it's controversy, and normally we're very well civilized and polite up here, so we don't have much controversy that people actually talk about. So Jen obviously has this meme, and it is hilarious. Is this?
I think
You
I
can
took
put
it
up-
down on. It just unintentionally did it.
It's hilarious, hilarious.
Well, this is the thing. Like I said, they only ever seem to have concerns for stuff when it's convenient for them. Oh, did I just
You
removed
just
you?
threw me off the stage. Oh my
I meant to
god!
throw myself off the stage. I'm sorry. But like that's just how I mean, and that's all across the board everywhere you go. Like the U.S. it's the same, Australia it's the same, the U.K. it's the same. It's just on their side, everything that they accuse us of, they're caught on camera doing. And then they take little minor things from our side, stretch them out to the point where, okay, well now it's offensive because you've made a point to make it offensive. You know, it was such a
And you
simple
have
fix.
liberals like me running around going, "Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Why are we letting the crazy people talk? Get them the fuck out of here!"
You know, it was such a simple fix. You know, Don would have definitely come on and been like, hey, guys, I probably could have worded my last statement better. And you know what? He
Well, he
has.
did.
He
He did.
has.
To
And
the
he-
only platform that would have him, Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
And arguably probably one of the biggest platforms outside of Hockey Night in Canada.
You
Because
know,
as much as many people, as big as the U.S. is, and as big as the reach of Fox News, some like an individual personality, even if it is Tucker Carlson, one of the best newscasters out there today, it's limited. Hockey Night in Canada is kind of just like a nationwide phenomenon. Like everybody watches from east to west coast, and it's hit my mic. And you know that's seen by a lot of people. And if you want to bring up my screen,
yep, we can do that. Like even for me, as somebody who's not a big hockey fan, he's always been the coach.
you don't have to be a hockey fan
You
to
don't.
appreciate somebody who's become a Canadian icon and a Canadian institution.
I mean, don't
He-
you
And
watch
if
hockey?
you,
Don't you watch
if you
hockey
see
for fights
here,
anyway?
this is from '97.
You don't have the sound on it. Do you want the sound on it? Or-
Oh, he's Rob.
It doesn't- if it's
it
not
doesn't
necessary,
matter.
then,
Rob
yeah.
McLean's just like, oh, I thought you didn't have the poppy, and you people are sitting in your living rooms, and you know,
that jacket.
basically said the jacket is gorgeous. Jacket is gorgeous, but I mean, basically, he's saying the exact same thing he was caught saying the other 2 weeks ago, and saying, you people sitting in your living rooms watching this, all better wear this poppy. And it's like, okay, this is the same fucking thing
Mhm.
that he just said.
The difference here is that they didn't
Freak out.
slug. Yeah, well, they didn't
What's the
make it
topic?
about being skin color.
What's
Yeah.
The
the
You
topic
People
about?
from 1997 was talking about me. It was talking about groups of people like me who are already Canadian.
Mm.
What's the poppy about?
The poppy is something that we do in Canada and in England to represent our memory of fallen soldiers, mostly in World War I and II.
Okay.
And it's it's a traditional thing because I forget.
It's
in
based
Fl-
off of in Flanders Fields, the poppies grow amongst the bodies, row on row. It was to only flower that would grow during that time period, and it's kind of a morbid thing because plants have a tendency to grow really well when a lot of people die. So the
Yeah.
red from the flower is supposed to represent the blood lost, the gift given. The black's supposed to represent. I can't remember it. It's supposed to represent
Mustafa.
like every
The black is mourning, the green is like the grass. So it has its symbolism. It's mainly rooted in the UK and in Canada. It's basically just our sort of one of our deepest traditions since the First World War, to commemorate our troops and the people who serve currently. It's a trademarked item symbol by the Legion. So when they sell the poppies, those funds are just extra funds to help the Legion disperse amongst various services like mental health services, advocacy services for veterans. So they're very noble in what they do. Obviously, the sale of poppy doesn't make much, but it does make a difference.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Arnsco. It started in World War I.
Makes a lot in Afghanistan.
If only the poppy were legal.
Well, the thing is the poppies themselves don't cost them anything. Like, I think the poppies probably cost them 2 cents to make. So it was always one of those things that, like, we all knew growing up that, like, even if you only had 40 cents, 50 cents, putting it in still helps them out. And the
Yeah,
thing
and
is,
as you got older, you'd throw a couple bucks here, and it got to the point where, you know, I'm dropping a tenner or 20, depending on what I had on me, because I go, oh shit, yeah, it's almost Remembrance Day, you know, boom.
and it makes up for the times where, like, you didn't necessarily have money. But, like, even still, like, for me, a lot of it was just because the poppies aren't designed to stay on your coat.
Yeah.
They're not designed with the intentions of being like a permanent thing. Like, I mean, you could tape the back of the pin to keep it from falling off, but, you know, they were really cheap. So I mean, like, quite often you'd buy like 4 or 5 of them because they would fall off. You know, so, like, you know, by the end of it, you've probably donated at least $10. You know.
So what was the drama? What was the recent drama about that?
So this has been kind of the thing is this has been kind of been a hot spot for us for probably a lot longer than Dawn. So the thing with the poppies is the last 10 years, everybody's been kind of struggling. You know, the last 5 years more exact, but I'd say 10 years in advance, this has been going on. So,
Struggling financially to buy the poppies?
no, it's mostly, a lot of it has to do with people stealing the buckets, because how it was is everywhere you would go, any convenience store, any grocery store, anywhere that you had a business, people would have bins of poppies. You know, so anyone could throw in their change, they could grab a poppy. You know, you'd have guys on the streets doing the same thing. You know, the guys from the Legions would be setting up. And so, like, the last 10 years, there's been a lot of cases of people just stealing them. A lot of people
money.
stealing the money from the buckets.
Yeah,
destroying
think of them
stands.
as when the Salvation Army does their little collection drive buckets around
right.
Christmas. It's kind of like that, but mostly in Canada they just leave them in the stores so that people can just pick them up as they go. And you know, for the longest time, it's, you know, again, since its inception, people have used the honor system to not steal the buckets from inside the store.
So, like, economically, a lot of people are hurting, and they're stealing money.
And then on top of that, it's not as it like I said, like, more stories of that have been coming out. So I mean, people were a little bit sensitive.
Not all, but
And
I'll
then-
give you 6 million reasons.
And then all of a sudden we bring in Trudeau. Well, one of the things that Trudeau got in on was a lot of it was like, oh, well, look at the Conservatives. Like, they just don't care about anybody. They don't have a heart for anybody. And, you know, he was offering money to these groups, like the vets. You know, oh, our vets are just ignored. You know, they don't get any proper care. They don't get the funding. Well, he cut their funding. You know, so here's our prime minister giving $10.9 million tax dollars to Omar Kadir, who, for the record, is a war monger. Like, he's murdered American soldiers. He was in Guantanamo Bay. And then Justin Trudeau can turn around to our soldiers, you know, some of whom have come back not in one piece, and say, well, we just don't have the money to help you.
Well, my experience, no country really cares about their military.
No, it's something that's been cropping up, and it's kind of shameful. So, like, the Don comes on, he's always been in support of the troops. Since the inception of his job, he's always been in support of the troops. You know, he does tours with the troops. He went to Afghanistan. He went to the U.S. military. He went to our military. He helped build a so that they would have something to do. He provided them with equipment. He's always been about showing support to the troops. So he's just doing what he's always done, which is just go online, platform to say, hey guys, everyone who's moved here recently, everybody who's living here recently, just remember, you're living in a good home because those people have died for you. That's basically what he said. And then he said, you people. And they went to, oh, well, he's a racist because he's calling out immigrants. And I'm just like, he was.
Immigrants on a race.
But he was calling out everybody. Exactly. He was calling out everybody. It wasn't just immigrants. You people was meant to be a group term. It was meant to include everybody.
Everybody that's a person.
That is a person.
Right. You people.
You people. And I mean, yeah, like I said, he could have worded it better. He could have been like, listen, when I said it, I wasn't meaning to target a single group. I was meaning to target everybody. And he did. And you know what? When he does it, he is a professional. He's not me. He's not angry me online who's just like, I don't like.
Okay, 100 years or 200 years ago, we would have these lynchings where a whole mob mentality would go out and hang somebody, and it wouldn't have to be a black person or a white. It could have been any person whatsoever. People would group think, and
the witch trials,
right? And there's nothing stupider than a whole group of people that are angry. And the thing is that we have that now digitally. We have that now on the web. In other words, a whole bunch of people get it in their head that this guy did something wrong, and then they start, disseminating incorrect information or slanted information, and it just builds and builds and builds and builds until, something happens. I mean, look what happened with this guy that was on death row. This recent guy who just got a stay of execution. The whole, there's all these stars and movie stars, that want him off of death row because they think he's innocent. He's not innocent at all. He's actually a serial rapist. And the only reason that he hasn't been charged with other rapes was because he was on death row. In other words, when finally the evidence was clear and the path led directly to him, all the other cases were dropped, because what's the point of retrying a case if the guy's already on death row? But here it is 20 years later, and they're using that as an excuse. Oh, he was only charged once for rape. So they're seeing him as like this innocent that's been put in jail and on death row because he never did nothing. And if you look really close at the facts, you'll realize that this guy is a scumbag. And I mean, people are lining up to literally, send them book deals on his terrible life that went awry. And the same thing is for that group of people that raped the girl in New York City. What do you call it? In the park, in Central Park. The Central Park 5. Same thing happened. These guys were guilty, and hell, they were all let off. And heck, there's even a movie about it that's so slanted the opposite way. They make it look like all the police, put them in jail for no reason whatsoever. So it's that mentality. We haven't really grown up that much. We have a lot of electronics. We have a lot of new tools, and the lynching goes that much faster, and spreads that much quicker, and many more people get behind these lynchings. But it's still the same old mentality. We're still human beings.
Yeah, we're still idiots.
And Jen, right and left. My argument. I'm telling you, it isn't right and left, because there are
no. Oh, believe me. As a Canadian citizen right now, Dana.
I'm just saying, it's the globalists that want us at each other's throats.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you again, ever since you let the IMF take over your bank, your economy went into the crapper. It isn't a left deal. It isn't a right deal. It is the IMF. those motherfuckers that are in Switzerland that have you guys by the balls, and you're turning your damn Canadian dollar into fucking toilet paper, and everybody in Canada is pointing at the other side. They're the ones that fall. It's Trudeau. Well, if it's not Trudeau, then it's somebody else.
Mhm.
And it isn't. It's.
Oh, believe me, when our choice was between Andrew Scheer and Trudeau, we all were aware of that. In all honesty, like I said, the guy that should have been in Scheer's position should have been Maxime. It should have been Maxime. If it had gone well, and I know he's not as charismatic as Scheer is, but just based off of platform, based off the fact that he's from Quebec, so he doesn't have the language barrier that a lot of our politicians have. He would have been the better guy, and he wouldn't have been. He was not on board with a lot of what they push. Both sides are in on this, Jada. Like I said, like how for 30 years, there's been issues with the way our government is run. Like there's been issues with how we elect people. There's been issues with how how much power we've given the government, the federal government.
Oh, yeah, we gave him too much.
We gave them too much, and that's provincial. Like that's everybody. That's that's Ontario too. They're in the same boat that we're in.
People think the only reason we have a vote is to give us a idea that we are actually making a choice for something. but those two people that we're voting for are picked. They're picked by the owners, by the owners that own everything. It's money behind it all.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking big money behind it all. I mean, everything you find in the news, it's all stems from that.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those things, and don't see this as resentment from me, because it's not. But a lot of it for us is direct interference from the U.S. A lot of it looks like it's direct interference.
Yeah. Are you fucking kidding me? Look at Peru. What did Trump just do? He actually supported the fucking coup.
It's.
You know why South America is in as bad a shape as it is? You know why Venezuela is in as bad a shape as it is?
Mm-hmm.
Fucking U.S. policy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's all about the fucking money. It's all about. Peru has like more stuff for batteries than anywhere in the world. And do you know the guy who's now president of Peru? You know who he is or who he was? He's a fucking multimillionaire who was involved with oil industry. Do you know that Peru, the past 10 years, has economically grown more than any other country in South America?
You're okay still? Wow. Okay. Never mind then.
I didn't know that data. I'm not really.
Yeah, and the reason being, they actually, the actual elected president who now was going to go for his fourth term, 12 fucking years as president. He was a what's it called? An Indian. He was a actual native Indian of that country. He was, in other words, he was like the jungle person in Peru that became president. And over the 12 years, he told the IMF to fuck off. He didn't want any goddamn loans from them. And he turned all the industry into public and let that take care of the poverty. And in those 12 years, 60% of the lowest income people are now out of poverty, and like 45% of all middle class is now in a better position. And you know who's fucking bitching? It's the friggin' rich there, and they're the ones who just took over the goddamn country by force. And then it's the same thing in fucking Venezuela. The people that are bitching here in the United States are the people rich enough to be able to buy a fucking plane ticket and come over here to bitch.
Hey, Logan. Yeah, I mean, it's a tale as old as time, right? The rich send people to do their bidding and make them more money, even if it costs them their own lives. So it can be an armed physical conflict or subversion through various other means.
It's that stupid damn paradigm where, socialism is communism.
Yeah.
You know, that is such bullshit. It's not even funny. You know, and the other thing too, which I love, everybody points to well, I'm no commie, but everybody points to commie and goes, "Oh, look at all the millions of people communism killed in Russia," as if democracy never killed anybody, as if any other government formula has ever killed anybody. I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no perfect system. So.
I think it's more
people in fucking Iraq.
I don't think it's that, Data. I think the thing is the guys on the left who push for that, they're dishonest about the numbers. It's one of those things where it would be different if we tracked the numbers for the other cases.
What, you mean the murders, the deaths, the killings?
Well, when you can see that people are being forced to die through starvation, it's a little bit different than murders and
that's exactly what we're doing to Venezuela right now.
Yes, but we're not doing it with democracy.
No, democracy is I'm sorry. I thought we were a democratic. You're right. We're not a democratic country. We're a
representative republic.
Yeah, representative republic or what is it? A constitution?
But I mean, colloquially has been referred to as democracy ever since it was conceived of in Roman times.
The old line. What, two wolves and a sheep are discussing what they're going to have for lunch. That's
exactly.
Democracy.
Hi, Jack. Hi, Lope, by the way. Hi, Deck Train. Sorry, it's just my keyboard won't let me use the C on it. So when I go to spell it Jack, it's like Jack.
I'm just saying that, there are no clean hands in government.
No.
Ever. Be it communist, be it socialist, be it even the Nazis in Germany.
Yeah.
You know what goes across all those government ideas? And you know what was present in all those government ideas? The elites at the top.
Yes, of course.
You're
right, Dectran. It was Greek. My bad. Not Roman. Greek.
It's all Greek to us.
Yeah, same shit, different pile. It's all white people.
Yeah.
Damn white people.
Yeah,
always
like
have
I'm not
culture.
saying that any system's any better, Data. I'm just saying when it comes to that side, it's just a lot of dishonesty when they come to the numbers.
Well, I think it's because we have a certain morality about certain types of death, and when you like taking the Nazis, for instance, they were about ethnic superiority and thus an ethnic cleansing. Same thing with the Armenian genocide.
Yeah.
Whereas something like a representative republic, democracy doesn't outright go out into the world and say these people have to die because of some immutable characteristic or whatever. It's these people have to die because they're oppressive to blah blah blah. Like there's always some sort of other morally more acceptable reason.
I mean, what was it, Nietzsche that said there is no good or bad? I mean, morality
of course
is a whole
subjective.
And then the thing too is, what all
from my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
All is fair in love and war. So what we get to firebomb cities because Hitler's in power in Germany. So let's go ahead and carpet bomb and firebomb Dresden and kill all these damn people. Just people that were living in their apartments. Let's just firebomb the whole damn city, level it all.
Why not?
Or a little more recent. Let's go into Iraq and bomb the fucking water plant, bomb the damn television plants, bomb all the infrastructure and the hospitals. That isn't war crimes.
Well,
I'm
when it all
saying-
boils down to it, like each system is just a tool and whoever's behind the tool is capable of doing good or evil. And
So Serenity Star has a response to data, and she says, "You mean like they did to London? Because that's the
Yeah,
thing."
exactly. Well, right. You know, they sent bombs straight to London. So yeah, you had that too. I mean, again, all's fair in love and war. But let me ask you this: right now, we have a huge military-industrial complex that loves to sell weapons around the world.
and it's positioned around the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
So,
it's like my friend Will told me, because like I was comparing Texas to California. So my thing with Texas is like I was just going on the fact that like they're doing really well. Like they've got a lot of infrastructure, they've got a lot of resources that they're pushing out.
No, Sam, but
Um,
might makes right.
You know, it was one of those things where like I wasn't saying that they made more money than California. I was just saying that they're making enough that they should be able to compete with California if they want to.
Well,
Um,
they have a different tax scheme than California does too. They don't have an income tax like California. They rely solely off sales tax. So they're a little bit different.
Yeah. But it was one of those things he pointed out that like a lot of the money that California makes is through the sale of old weapons, and old weapons.
And-
Good.
And they have extremely high taxes and regulations that make business hard. So in California, it's they have so many rules to have a business here in California. It's impossible to start one yourself.
and that's why a lot of businesses are moving away from California right now.
Yeah.
At least
But I'll go into Texas.
That's why it's turning into a shithole.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I've visited Texas. It's really nice. The properties are really cheap. You can buy like a 3-4 bedroom house for $150,000 $200,000, which is like nothing
Yeah.
for the rest of the country.
Yeah.
You know,
California could buy a trailer house for $1 million. You know.
Hell,
Yeah.
even to a Canadian, that's attractive. I'm just saying that Texas is going to have a hell of a lot of Canadians over the next couple of years.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of space in Texas. So.
just make sure that you give them the rule that if they come to Texas, they can't just vote for the Democrats. You know, don't make it worse for yourself. I mean, you got to hope that most of the Canadians going down there are conservatives anyway. But
Well.
But you know, Texas.
At least they're more business orientated than, because I mean that's the prime reason to go down there from here is because you have lucrative opportunities that a lot of our you know, quote unquote best and brightest are going down there to take advantage of. There is still, you know, well established and still growing industries that have to deal with more to do with like entertainment and the like. You know, there's obviously major video game studios up here, and energy generation is a huge field out in Alberta. The revolutionary ways that they've increased efficiency through oil. But sadly, we're losing a lot of these higher end people with these skills and this knowledge to American, well, geographically to America.
But believe me, the only people who are winning right now is the U.S. With everything that's going up here, you guys are the ones winning, because
Trump said, you know, we're going to be sick of winning, and I'm sick of you guys of them winning so much. It
really is, because the thing that Canada had over the U.S. was our oil wells are done better. We are cleaner. We are actually significantly cleaner than you guys. So a lot of other people, a lot of other countries would rather work with our guys so that we can teach them how to set it up properly. Because having that reputation goes a lot further. But now our guys are all going to the U.S. and guess what? They're going to share that technology with you, which I don't blame them at all. They should. They should anyway. But you know, we're losing our own opportunities. We're closing and burning bridges, and that's why, you know, I love his face. It's not just oil either, though. You know, it's all the other extractions that we aren't allowed to do that we could do better. That we aren't allowed to even explore. It's so much stuff that we've just been told, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. And like there's a certain point where you're just like, okay, you know what, motherfucker, get out of my house.
Yeah, well, regulations always, stop progress.
Well, I mean, luckily with the regulations in Alberta, it has actually inspired this progress, but it's also at the same time killing the industry through its red tape.
Yeah.
I mean, there are
To go into everything now is just too exhaustive. But
Oh, yeah.
suffice it to say, it's one of the rare occasions in which a hyper restrictive regulation system actually came out with a net positive.
We
But-
wouldn't be nearly as advanced in how safe we are if we
But-
hadn't had it. So
But Jen, this is the
yeah.
reason
Same.
why the American concerns want these guys now.
Yep.
And want this technology is because it's actually more efficient and safer, so that it becomes cheaper for them.
exactly, which is
So
what I don't.
I mean, it's,
that's
again,
why
it's
I
one of
don't-
those outliers.
I don't mind sharing the information with them. It's one of those times
Well,
where it's
some.
like, it's like when we shared penicillin with the world. Sometimes you share stuff just because it's the right thing to do, even though you know that you might be losing a loss on it. For the oil, I don't mind sharing our technology with the rest of the world. It's why I'm so frustrated. It's not about the money, because I don't work in the oil field. I don't get any oil field dollars. Maybe I get like better, like if I look at my cities in comparison to Ontario, Toronto, Ottawa, even down to Edmonton, Calgary is a really nice place to live. With all the problems that we've had, I will say this, we are actually a really good place to live. We don't have the temperature that you guys have. We can run most of the year because we do have those Chinooks. It's quite often more warm here than anywhere else in Canada, right? For everything that's been taxed on us, we could be a lot better. So, I mean, I understand the frustration, but I think that's why I'm frustrated, is because I want Ontario to do better. I want China to do better. I want the US to do better. And the fact that we can't do that, it's not my money. I'm not arguing about my money. It's not my money. I'm living off of my own tax dollars right now, based off of what I've paid into the government. I don't want to take money from people. I don't want you guys to feel like you are taking money from people. I'd rather you have cheaper gas, because Canada has the ability to provide us with cheaper gas. And I do want to be environmentally safe about it. I would like to get rid of the coal in China. I would like to get the lakes of plastic out of the ocean. I'm on board with that. I just don't want to do it at a bottom dollar that's going to cap everybody to the point where we can't actually do it anymore. So, yeah, go ahead. It's probably Functional's turn anyway, because he's had this lovely Tucker image.
Oh, are we going to go back to Cherry now? Okay, well,
if you live in
Does it sound?
Canada, you love hockey, Don Cherry, legendary sportscaster, doesn't quite
Does
do
it
it
sound
justice.
this
He's
time?
also
Yeah.
deeply
Okay,
involved
perfect.
in protecting
Just having some
dogs.
technical difficulty usually.
Anyway, Don Cherry, after a very long career,
So,
was
yeah, this
fired
is, like I said
after this Sunday
earlier,
night's broadcast
the
of
only platform that would
hockey night in
host Don
Canada
Cherry
saying
after
this.
his comments is Tucker. So
I live in Mississauga. Nobody wears, very few people wear a poppy. Downtown Toronto, forget it. Downtown Toronto, nobody wears a poppy. Now you go to the small
I live
cities,
there.
and those.
Wow,
the
he
roads
sounds a
on
little
roads,
bit like Bernie.
You people love you. They come here, whatever it
Close
is.
your eyes.
You love our way of life. You love our milk and honey. At least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that. These guys pay for your way of life that you enjoy in Canada. These guys paid the biggest price.
So for some reason that was
That's it.
considered unbelievably over the line in Canada. By the
doing
way,
the
buying
Tucker
poppies
finish.
on Remembrance Day is a long-standing.
I
Canadian
think the
tradition.
thing that's
The way to
funny
honor
is you
their
play
fallen
that clip to
soldiers. By the way,
Americans
a
and they're
lot
like,
of
"What?
Canadians
Why are you guys so
died
mad
in
about
the
this
two
nothing
wars.
burger?"
Look it up. It's pretty amazing.
didn't
So
didn't
far,
your
Mr. Cherry
your
stands by
president
his
do
comments, and we're
blackface?
proud to have him on.
Prime
Thanks,
Minister, and
so
yes.
much, Don Cherry, for coming on. So
Makes you
First
makes
of
you
all,
wonder
I got
what's
to tell
trying
you,
to
Tucker, that
cover up.
Bobby Orr's watching, and he's a big fan of yours. And Liz is
Thank
all
you.
excited.
In other words,
because she's from Boston.
the
Liz is from
controlling
Boston.
narrative.
Mom's watching, so I had to say
And you
that
said
right
he
off the
sounded
start.
a little bit like
Well,
Bernie.
amen. I'm glad he
Yeah.
married an American. I did too. It's worked out. So
It's probably the age thing.
tell us, for
Yeah.
those of us who aren't Canadian,
They're both a
what
little
you
senile.
said, unless I'm misunderstanding it,
And
you're
good God, that
basically
tartan
saying
suit.
we
Oh,
have a day where we honor the men who died fighting for
I'd love to have a
Canada,
nice tight tartan suit.
people who moved to Canada because it's a great country, and it is, I think, should acknowledge that and join in our tradition because it's worth remembering these guys who died. Is that
So
what
here's
you're
the
saying?
thing.
So, Jen,
I would
exactly
say
what I
that
said when this story
evidently,
first broke.
I did a great thing. I thought on Matt.
See,
Sonny,
here's the
and
thing.
he
Just how many
had
of those
booked with
immigrants are from
diabetes. I
America?
did for 2 young.
You know, you guys have your own vets. You don't know about the poppies because it's not your kind of thing. What makes you think he's not talking to Americans?
I know dude, I live in downtown Toronto. He's talking about everyone. He's
Right?
talking about younger generations who just don't give a fuck. And he's talking to, yes, he's talking to the newcomers who aren't like on the base level from his comments, aren't respecting the tradition. Like I said before, it's not about actually going out and getting a poppy. Yes, that would be a nice gesture, but he also says, or something,
Yeah.
and just, even if it's as much as fucking paying that 60 seconds of respect that we ask on the 11th hour, the 11th day of the 11th month. That's our tradition. If you don't want to fucking play along, just keep your mouth shut for 60 seconds, shut the fuck up for 60 seconds, these kinds of things. But and it's amazing. It's amazing. 15, 20 years ago, I could be in the middle of downtown Toronto, hear the bell ring for 11 o'clock. Everyone would stop and shut the fuck up. It was amazing. It was like it's like something you would see out of a movie. Everybody just sort of stops or slows and just stopped talking everything until the bells stopped ringing and then went back on their way like nothing ever happened. And today you don't have that. The bells will ring. People will still be fucking blasting music on their fucking iPhones and talking, not wearing the poppy, just not giving a shit. And it's something that has been an overarching theme in Canada, especially, that are, people are saying, oh, Canada doesn't have an identity. Actually, we do.
Mm-hmm.
You're just ignorant to it. And even I myself, for most of my life, was fairly ignorant to it. But, I wanted to learn more and more of where I came from, where the land I inhabit came from. And I've always, even as a kid, knew to respect and always wore a poppy. Like you said, Jen, even if I had a quarter in my pocket till, as I grew up older and, was working man and everything, throw a couple bucks in, whatever, I always put the poppy on. Didn't fully understand the ramifications and the entire history, but I still wore it because it was the tradition, it was the respect. And today, yes, these traditions, these respects, they're being pissed on. Like, people are outright disrespecting them, not showing, like I said, you don't have to play, but you can at least respect what's going on. And that's ultimately what Cherry is saying. And it resonates so deeply with me because I am one of those people from, the megalopolis that is Toronto, that is like the heart and center of what is predominantly seen of as Canada.
Well, the same thing is happening here in America too.
Exactly.
They don't keep it
Exactly.
values
It's
of
happening
America.
there. It's happening in the UK. It's happening in Australia. The Western world as a whole has this growth and it's spreading.
It's an anti-national movement.
Well, there's nothing wrong with being national.
Coming-
It's just how you do, but it's
You
how
know,
you use it.
I mean, it's the whole thing about, destroying nations in Europe to become a European,
Right.
destroying the border.
But it's
The
so
German
insane to
superstate.
me because these countries, the Western world countries, are all very strong allies.
Mm-hmm.
So it boggles my mind. And yeah, you can throw on as many tin hats as you want and try to follow the money and try to follow what's being influenced here. But at the end of the day, there's something happening, some outside influence of some sort that's causing these ideas to spread and fester and rot.
I think it's guilt over acts of sex. That's what I think it is.
But it's the vocal minority. It's such a minority of people. I don't understand why people, like other people, what you would colloquially call normies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and these normies, it's spreading. You can see it on TV and on social media. It's just so weird to me.
It's a combination of also poor education, not caring about history, not learning. There's a disconnect. There's a disconnect even generationally. The young kids don't.
Oh
think
yeah,
older people don't know shit about anything.
it's become cliche and a meme in today's day. Hard times breed hard people, soft times breed soft people, and we've had a lot of soft times recently. The last couple generations have been kind of soft, and it's just progressively getting softer and softer, and we're resting on these laurels. Thank you, Jack Gunsky. Luckily, I also have a face for radio, so I have these lovely icons.
Yeah. Well, the public school system in America it's
been failing.
It's a mess.
Yeah. It's luckily bred for the middle class family. It's bred through the necessity of it, a private school industry that's actually done well. It's actually done well for the kids who can get into them.
Yeah. Well, I think
same thing's kind of happening here, but we don't have as poor education on the fundamentals level yet. We're still kind of clinging on to those things, kind of like Britain, but you do see that sort of social justice-y, Twitter warrior rhetoric do creep in. I know specifically here in Ontario, we voted the fuck out of the party who started instituting that into our public school system in the last provincial election, yeeted them the fuck out. Because that was just too much, even for your milquetoast liberal and your normies. They were like, what? You want to teach my 4-year-old about transgender people?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? My 4-year-old doesn't need to know about sex and sexuality. Maybe when they're in their 11, 12 and starting to hit puberty, then yeah, you can tell them the scientific fundamentals of it all. Like, this is a penis. This is what's going to happen to you. It's okay. This is your vagina. Sometimes it's going to bleed. It's okay. And then, and I personally believe that at a certain level, let's say at like grade 12, when they start getting into the more sex education aspect of it, the child or the parents can sort of opt in, opt out kind of thing, and make it completely voluntary, so that if the kid does feel that they're ready to learn this stuff, because people develop at very different stages. I know a lot of people, when I was learning that shit at 13, 14, most of the guys in my class would just giggle and laugh and not learn jack shit, and usually have 20 baby mama. So it really didn't work. It was for the people like me who would be those types to opt in, who actually wanted to learn, hey, how is this shit all going to work?
Well, my high school handled it by having had daycare on property, so that's how they handled sex ed. So, but that's South Texas. Is very Christian back there, so.
Yeah, another reason why I'm an anti-theist.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for people practicing their religions and having their religions as archaic and as foolish as I personally believe they are. I would never persecute someone for what they would believe on that level. I would debate them. Sure, if you want to have a discussion, let's do it. But I'm not going to insult you by just walking up to you and saying, "Oh, there is no God, you idiot." Like that doesn't serve anybody any good, and it's only confrontational. But I do believe that like it needs to be kept out of the institutions, because it does kind of influence and ruin things. More often than not, for the worse.
Well, especially when God lands in his UFO and says, "I'm God. I was the one."
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we lost Jen. I don't.
So God will
Her potato might have crashed.
Our internet is acting up.
But yeah, let's.
Died, 15 and 17. That was
so he's basically just explaining, like what he was saying, because it was pretty self-evident.
So we're at a hockey game at Brampton.
Patriot, blah blah blah.
Have you seen Tucker's latest book?
I have not.
Have you seen any of his interviews where he's been interviewed about his book?
I have not.
Tucker's actually a centrist. He grew up in California as a liberal.
Yeah, he's a trust fund kid
I believe
too.
it.
His book is basically about how the elite aren't taking care of their workers.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm working class, and I could vouch for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The evidence is in the details, the statistics, the numbers, the money. It's it's.
Oops, sorry.
And I don't want to go the Bernie Sanders route and just hyper regulate everything, but I want to somehow, without getting too involved, just incentivize treating workers well. And I think,
but how are you going to do that? Because ultimately, it comes down to the people at the top taking a little bit out of their income and sending it down to the bottom, and that just doesn't happen normally.
well, I think it would be a combination of the things, but one big thing would be a reformation of how taxes are collected. I know that in both countries, in Canada and the United States, you're taxed on income on the federal and the state or provincial level.
That's why I agree with
Excuse me.
Texas standard to just make it all sales tax, all of it, federal tax, state tax.
The problem with
Yeah,
that,
and I because I come from a more socialized nation with a very good social safety net, government healthcare, etc., has its failings, but still, I'm glad it's there. I would say, a very small percentage. I'm no genius or expert when it comes to this, but let's just throw a number out there. Let's say it's 5%. So a very small percentage on your income tax. And then, most of the rest of it would be through, value added taxes and sales taxes. And basically, and maybe a luxury tax on things that are exorbitant, like, that would cost millions at a time.
VAT tax is an anathema down here. There's a 0.001% VAT tax in Florida, and that's probably one of the only states there is a VAT tax in. VAT tax obviously is everything you own is being taxed. An estimate of everything you own has a percentage of being taxed. So
I mean, there are different ways of doing it, and the way that it's been instituted in Florida is horrible. But I don't remember the exact country, but I think it was Finland. I don't know.
Most big business is VAT taxed outside of the United States.
Yes, and if it's done well, I don't remember the country. I know it was one of the big Nordic ones. I want to say Finland. They did it right, and it's actually worked incredibly well for them per capita. So the nation as a whole is doing really well. Even the lowest of the low, the highest of the high on the income scale, they're doing really well comparatively to the rest of the world. And it's because they've instituted VAT taxes in addition to income taxes and in addition to sales taxes, but in the quote unquote right increments. Right is subjective because obviously they are a much smaller nation and blah, 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 blah. But my point is, again, it's a tool. And if you could get the numbers right, I think that this would be a great step towards sort of stabilizing things and allowing for America specifically to have things like a healthcare system that's more socialized. I don't want to. I mean, it's just too big to just go full on. Like
we already have a socialized Medicare. Medicare and Medicare. The only problem is we have it only for people 65 years and older. It's like having a national highway system that only allows the geriatrics to drive on it. It's ridiculous.
And a lot of hospitals have their own systems for taking care of that too.
Yeah, I mean, and there's and the thing is, they're all supplemented by the government, anyways. I mean, ultimately, the reason insurance companies, major insurance companies, medical insurance companies, and big pharma, are making huge profits is because they have tapped into the government money. They get a huge stream of government money. So, it's
because our government still pays a lot on healthcare too.
It's crazy that we don't have it. I mean, we're one of the richest countries in the world, and there's no reason why somebody here shouldn't have medical care, even if they don't have any money and don't have any savings. The biggest worry people have is how to see a doctor.
Mhm.
And they already know that worry in itself will make people sicker.
And if you have an accident and you don't necessarily have the choice to, it can bankrupt you.
Oh,
Yeah.
and does.
Well, yeah, it does, and it's getting out of hand.
I mean, I'll tell you, I know this one guy. He's a diesel mechanic. He does diesel mechanicery on the
Yes, it
road.
was, Jim.
Yeah.
And he's also a veteran, and they found tongue cancer, and he had to take a loan out. He had paid his house free and clear. He had to take a loan out on his house to cover what wasn't covered by the Veterans Association. That's a damn shame. I mean, that shouldn't
Right.
happen. That
I'm
shouldn't happen.
grateful that this stream kept going because my computer completely committed seppuku.
Well, it's StreamYards for you. It's what it did,
It's her potato.
It's my
Yeah.
potato.
She's literally got
No, I
a
mean,
potato hooked up to a battery.
Well, I mean, when you use StreamYards, it keeps it going for you, like Hangouts used to.
It's nice that it does that because I was sitting there
Yeah.
like I had a little rage fit, went to my brother's room, was just like, you know what? There's nothing I can do about my situation short of like
Yeah,
winning a couple grand.
The one
Yeah.
drawback I don't like about StreamYards is that we both can't have control. It has to be one
Yeah.
or the other. But at least it's
Mhm.
got the safety of continuing to go until she actually comes back on.
Yeah.
I think it'll idle for about half an hour. So
Yeah.
if everybody else leaves, it'll idle for another half an hour and then just stop everything.
See, that's not a bad thing though. Like, I mean, if in case there was an emergency or something, then you
Mhm.
know it's good that that it does that. It's just until yeah, just so you guys know, if you like my streams and you want me to get somewhere, then maybe share my stream out so I can get some follows on this channel that's like brand new and probably not
Yeah.
going to last very long given the algorithm.
She's trying to take over Blood Wings time spot.
No, that'll be our discussion after the stream. Just because like we got to figure out a new time. Just because like we were just keeping the seat warm for
Yeah.
our beloved Bloodwing. But I'll probably still do Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'll just probably do it afterwards because the thing with Tuesdays and Thursdays and Wednesdays is there's about half the people we follow don't do much except for like after 9 o'clock. So
Yeah.
it just leaves you a lot of room to kind of do stuff.
Especially if
And-
you don't sleep like me.
Right? It's just my sleep schedule's all over the place too. I'm sure functional's not much different in the terms of like unless you have like day-to-day things going on, you're just like, I don't know what day it is. Well, I do, but I mean,
No, I just have a really retarded sleep schedule.
Mm.
I have insomnia, so like
Yeah.
I'll go like 3 days and not sleep and then just like crash for 16 hours.
That is the one thing the army gave me was insomnia. So You can
Yeah,
use
so
it, though.
we sort of started talking about, I sort of in passing mentioned how my province, Ontario, had this like problem with specifically education, got the Liberals yeeted out. So this is something that just came up. And so there was a board meeting on the, we have two school boards here in Toronto, the Toronto District School Board, which is the publicly funded one. And we also have the Catholic School Board, which is in part funded by tax dollars, which is fucking retarded. They should
Ugh.
survive on their own merit. But anyway, it's more of the same. There was a meeting and they were meeting to take action to be more inclusive to LGBTQ concerns and rhetoric. Actually, you know, doing them a service and oh God, where is I totally lost where it said, but you know, again, it was to be more inclusive. So being more inclusive and recognizing and not, I hate to use this word, but not like persecuting or deriding someone for having, you know, same parent
And
household
and to
for
me,
being LGBT. Sorry.
and to be honest, how much derision and persecution is there of the LGBT?
Well, because they were a separate Catholic school board, for a time they could say, no, you're gay, get out of the school. Or no, we're not going to accept you because you're claiming to be trans. So they're basically being more inclusive, but because these are public institutions, the minutes are recorded. Someone got a hold of the minutes. It was one of these loudmouths who were just blah blah blahing about it because somebody made an offhand remark about they said, oh great, next we'll have to deal with things like cannibalism and pedophilia and bestiality and autoerotic asphyxiation. So I guess and just flippant comments, and there was no actual formal complaint, which is as easy as saying this is a formal complaint in an email, because again, public institution, emails are accessible, but he's been getting flooded by hate mail of just people trying to take the piss out of him. And usually the same rhetoric, oh you bigot, blah blah, that kind of stuff. It's all just been pissing and moaning. All you literally have to do is do the same thing and say this is a formal complaint. What they said was out of order, and nobody's done that yet. They haven't gotten any. If they did, the school board said, hey, if there is some sense of wrongdoing, if there's formal complaints that there was wrongdoing, we'll get a third party in and we'll do a whole investigation. We'll waste plenty of tax dollar money because that's what we do in a legal system. But no one's done that.
Somebody said something.
Mustafa asked,
but it's people going, oh, what he said was it's just, oh god.
Yeah,
Oh, God, I'm so
Mustafa
sick of
says,
these.
why does it sound like that guy was listing his search history?
Well, Christian Science Monitor's got to keep abreast of these things.
Yeah.
So, guy does hate speech, and it incites a army to hate speech him.
Well, it's while they're saying that in their charter people can't be discriminated against because of their LGBTQ status,
Right.
and he's saying, okay, so we're not going to we're going to allow no one shall be discriminated against if they're lesbian, gay, bi, transsexual, queer, cannibalist, pedophilia, bestiality. It's one of those kinds of things. It wasn't like it's a joke. I can read the tone from the actual quote I read earlier.
Right.
It's just,
I'm okay with people hating pedophiles, so
yeah, me too. That's kind of why this is a joke, is because he's not equating the two, but he's just saying, who thought a Catholic school board would start accepting the gays or the trans, like it's a joke. I really wish we weren't living in such a hypersensitive society, but I mean, this is the kind of shit that happens that turns people off from being on your side.
And
Yep.
At the beginning of the Pride Parade started here in Toronto and had a reason. And I was there day one supporting people who weren't like me because I believed in that their sort of label, their status should be recognized alongside the status of, basically human being, Canadian citizen. So there was that. And then eventually, as the years went by, it just degraded into goo, and I just didn't want to be a part of that anymore. And I see that, ever evolving through social media, again, through shit like this, through shit like Don Cherry, and it's making me mad.
Mm-hmm.
I get a little ranty every once in a while. Sorry, Data.
No problem. Listen, if cannibals don't like it, eat me.
Ba-doom. Actually, oh man, where's my soundboard? I got a car crash for that one. I wish Cryptic was here to drop a bomb every now and then. He's always got nice jokes, even if they are dad jokes.
He's got a weird schedule, one of these days I'll bring him on, when he has a day off or something. But
Well, he has a real job, not like us.
yeah, engineer and all, and he's great to go to because sometimes I don't know answers to certain questions like the Keystone Pipeline. It was one of those ones that's gone so quiet up here. They're just deliberately not talking about it because we're aware of the fact there's elections going on in the U.S. and we're just like, don't say a word, just let it pass.
Well, wasn't it stalled down here for a while?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so
That's why I say elections time. You just keep your mouth shut about it because the last election that you guys had,
Oh boy.
oh boy.
you know that pipeline. You know where it goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right into Texas. But you know where it goes? Right into Texas to a
In your
brand new multi-million-dollar facility that the Koch brothers built specifically to refine the dirtiest tar sands there are on the planet. And you know what the second country to have the dirtiest tar sands on the planet are?
Saudis.
No,
Oh.
Venezuela.
Oh, okay.
I used to be a refinery
Follow the
inspector
money.
back in Texas. It's good pay, but hard work.
Elwin has to say a 6-year-old does not need to see a guy mostly naked in a GIMP mask, and I agree. A 6-year-old does not
to tell
need
you
to
an interesting story, there was one singular event that I was witness to. I think it was probably the 4th Pride Parade, maybe 5th. It was a couple in, and I took a long hiatus away from it. So you know those traffic cones that are triangular or conal and orange and probably about 2.5 feet in length.
Yeah, traffic cone. Yeah.
Excuse me. Oh my God.
He's
some
got
water?
he's got the dank stuff.
No, I just needed a sip of my tea. But the not very broad ones, they're a little bit skinnier. So I was walking down the little, quote unquote gay town street in Toronto, and I saw this guy starting to squat. I'm like, oh God, please don't be taking a shit. And as I got closer and saw through the crowd, he wasn't wearing any pants and he wasn't going to take a shit, but he was starting to sit on the top of one of those cones.
Oh no.
And I kind of stopped, mouth agape, and I was in pure shock. It was one of those, I can't look away, but oh my God, no, I don't need to see this. And I snapped out of it only when he hit the bottom.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Complete shock. I tapped my friend on the shoulder. I said, I'm going home. I turned around and I very calmly and collectedly walked back to the subway. And about halfway on my subway trip, I just went, ah!
Could you imagine the foghorn? I'm sorry.
I just cracked. Everything just cracked. I didn't come to tears, but I was somewhat sobbing on the inside, and it kind of was showing as my expression contorted into just it's like when you're having a really rough shit and you're just trying to hold it all the pain in. It was one of those, and my face was just so contorted. I could see it on other people's faces. And they were like, oh my God, is this guy okay? And I just wanted to reach out to them and say, no, I'm not okay. If you've seen the things that I've seen. But I made it home. I crept into my bed, fully clothed, shoes, everything, sweaty as a dog, and just curled up into bed and didn't wake up until the next day. And went about my life like nothing ever happened. And occasionally I share this story because that was the linchpin. I recently, several years ago, went back to one and was just like, oh, it's just a rave on the street, big fucking whoop, and went home. But that was the singular moment where I was like, I can't do this anymore. No.
Jack Gunsky says the traffic cone is only supposed to represent a pedestrian, not penetrate one.
I don't know, Mustafa. Like, we're in a lot of respects, like, we don't literally have shit on the ground just yet.
That's not
But
just
in a lot of respects, we're worse than California.
But for the record,
On the social
hashtag
justice
cone-
platform.
hashtag cone me too sounds amazing.
And yes, back to what Elwin was saying, a 6-year-old does not need to see that. Like, if my 6-year-old would have, like, oh my God, if I was walking down there with my 6-year-old and that happened, I would have killed him. And it wouldn't have been a hate crime because I'm not doing it because he's gay. I'm doing it because he's a fucking degenerate piece of shit doing that in public in front of a fucking 6-year-old.
Come on, he's a magician. He made a cone disappear.
He was like, I watched that one episode of South Park where Mr. Slave put what's her face up his ass, and he was just like, a challenge. Paris Hilton.
I think we need to end the stream. I can't go on anymore. No, I'm good. I'm good.
Like human beings, they cross a line and then they get used to it, and they cross another line and they get used to it, and all of a sudden, 5 or 6 years later, you're in a place.
That slippery slope is looking less of a fallacy, ain't it?
Yep.
So if I ever go to Toronto during Pride Week, I'm just going to keep peanut butter on me at all times and just hand it out to people.
I'm gonna go to bed now. Dude, it used to be more or less a hippie movement.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, peace, love, let's just all be treated equal under the law. Hey, yeah, okay, that was great. And everybody would have a few beers in the streets and dance around and smoke some joints and then go home. And now it's just like this degenerate rave thing on the street. It's gooey.
I thought the Black Lives Movement took over the gay pride parade.
They shut it down a couple years ago, or they tried to.
Yeah.
They at least got the Toronto police force to not have a float, and for the police chief to basically say, don't wear your uniforms there, which is a shame because I believe the statistic is that there's a 12% representation at the time in the police force. Mm-hmm. So you're basically saying they're
not included
it's their
either.
festival through virtue of who they are and what it represents, but they're not allowed to go because of their vocation. Mm-hmm. And most Canadians basically said, get the fuck out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not to mention Black Lives Matter doesn't have a leg to stand on if you look at the statistics. So.
No.
Not up here. They've got
especially not up here.
No, they've got the odd story of oh, woe is me. But honestly, most of the people from that community are more woe is me because they've been struggling to get out of it. It's one of those things where half of it's their own shit and half of it is historical. But that's mostly in Nova Scotia and maybe one town in Ontario.
Historically, here is where we took in all the fucking Underground Railroad people. Was Ontario.
That's where it's coming from. That's where it's coming from. It's just when they got
they just don't know.
Here, yeah,
they don't know anything.
Yeah.
They're the constant vocal minority that we keep talking, who don't know anything. They literally are so uneducated and ignorant to everything that they espouse.
Right.
Well, it's not them. It's the white liberals infiltrating their group. It's one of those things where historically there was a little bit of grief when they came up here because it's a group of people that you have to find a place to put. That was what the grief was about. So a lot of people were like, well, we don't really want a flush of people in our communities just because that's usually going to cause some harm to that community. So a lot of the white liberals kind of went into the group and see what happened to you when you came up here. We weren't nice to you either. And it's just no, that's kind of stuff that happens regardless of what the group color is. They could have been Italians coming up here and they probably would have had some grief just because it's a large group of people.
Well, I mean, that's how it worked at Ellis Island.
Mhm.
Like, the Italians arrived and everybody treated them like shit, and then the Irish arrived and everybody treated them like shit. It's
Right.
just the pecking order, and for the most part, we're moving past that. There is a little bit more. Like I said, there's jokes.
Mhm.
There's nothing
Well, the
wrong
new
with a
guy always
little.
gets treated like shit. So
Yeah, the new guy always gets treated like the shit.
No.
Because
Yeah.
you know what? In anything, really, you got to pay your dues. And a lot of, there is taking things maliciously.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that there never has been malicious stuff like that. There definitely has been in like things like segregation and torture and
Mhm.
rape and murder and all these things. Yes, that has happened. But, again, we're living in the modern age, and it's more or less boiled down to the worst you're going to get is some jokes.
And I mean, the thing is
Shouldn't
with
work.
the Black Lives Matter movement up here, it was just like, when they started crying about that kind of stuff, and well, you look pretty close next to you, and then you've got Quebec, and Quebec's just like, so hey, N-word, hard N-word, because it's Quebec and they would use it. Just to remind you of what they did to us. So we're French, we're white, and we were here before you. Just to remind you, everything that was done to you is nothing compared to what they did to us. And that's
Shit rolls
What you guys-
downhill too. But yeah,
What you
we
got-
treated the Acadians like absolute garbage, like we treated them as badly as at the worst times that we treated the aggressive native populations. It
Yeah.
was, we were the Scots, the Brits, they were the French.
But
I mean,
again, it's all history.
yes,
Exactly.
exactly. It all boils down to
It-
it
You
being
can't
ancient history.
change it. You can't judge it.
yeah.
Thankfully, we've learned from these mistakes, and again, as Western society, and moved past them and tried to do better by them. I don't see
Yeah.
other countries doing the same, and these same people talking about them. I mean, again, we see it all
They're-
over the place.
They're trying it on Japan. You can see that they're trying it on Japan, and it's actually kind of a little bit disturbing and funny at the same time, because the Japanese, they don't
Make great toilets.
they make great toilets, but you know what? They don't change their mind over things. Like, it takes a lot of work to actually change their minds on certain things. So like I'm
Oh
saying
yeah, they're very much traditionalists. So if something's been ingrained into their culture for a long enough time, like they will not let it go.
So this idea that you're going to get them on board with this diversity thing, it's not going to happen, or it's going to take you several generations. So like that's,
They don't have the space either.
they don't have the space.
It's
Well,
not
that-
going to happen. And on top of that, when
Yeah,
you
they don't have the Gibbs, they don't have the space.
and when
In
you
fact,
talk about-
the West is taking people from Southeast Asia en masse.
Mhm.
Again, the number of I think it was close to 4 million in the last decade to Canada.
I just know
5 years.
I just
Decade.
know
I don't remember.
I just
But
know that-
the total number was 6 million, and we took in 4 million from specifically that region of Asia.
Japan is just typically conservative, and you're not wrong. They are. It's just when it comes to Japan, when it comes
So
to
very socially conservative, but again, very much
Yeah.
traditionalist in their conservatism.
that's why that's why you see a lot of those groups targeting their media, like their anime, their manga. That's why they're going after that, because with
They're
Japan,
attacking the Western market
yes, they're
to
attacking.
affect change,
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
but
And
they're not going to
Japan-
bend.
They're not.
No.
And Japan knows it. They know that they're not going to get away with it, because in terms of money, they already know the math. They're just like, okay, so you're like a small percentage of assholes making things a lot more difficult for people. You're actually increasing our sales, because a lot of people are buying shit that they wouldn't buy just to show support because they think you guys are shitty people.
I mean, the thing is that there's traps in anime, so
Yeah, there are.
But our trap's gay.
yeah.
See, there's tons
Depends
of
on the
traps
trap.
in anime. There's been traps in anime for like 30 years. It's just, it was always kind of like a little bit of a running gag. But you know what? They had a lot of support for it too. You know, there's just as many people who don't necessarily care for traps who see that in an anime and they're just like, yay, we got our trap character, you know?
I especially love the cultural appropriation of Japanese culture, and then when they're told about it in Japan, they're like, "What the fuck are you talking?"
Yeah,
Yeah, they don't care.
We love that you like this. What are you talking about?
You love our culture?
love
Fucking
our
awesome,
culture?
dude.
Love
Yeah,
the-
no, totally.
Where
Again,
are-
Toronto
Yeah.
specifically data. We've had a very high, a very large Japanese community here historically, but it's expanded quite a bit in the last couple decades. And they love the fact that people love like them and their culture and everything, and they integrate so well into Canada.
Right.
We're not much different in our thinking, you know. In overall, I mean, like we're probably
as
more-
opposed to being traditionalists, we're more nationalistic.
Mhm.
And that's the same kind of general idea of what we cling on to. So we cling on to our traditions, and they cling on to theirs. It's just a different, different type of traditions, so to speak. So they we coincide very well. I say we, but like Canadian culture.
See, for me, I just have to poke fun
We
at
love
them.
we love their cat girls. So
Well, I have to poke fun at them because when they came to my province, they stole the greatest onsen ever up in Banff because they own pretty much every hot tub up there. Anywhere there's a hot spring, they're just like, bring in the cedar, folks, because we're going to show you how to do it right so that when you're bathing in a cedar tub.
Oh,
And I'm okay
here,
with
here they took a swath of land in this know-nothing town called Markham, just outside of Toronto, and over like 3 decades, just built it up, and now it's like one of the largest adjacent, most affluent towns near to Toronto. It's incredible.
They're a good group of people. I've always liked them. But they are harsh. They are very strict in their thinking, and they don't like no nonsense in their country. Like you come over and you
The older ones, yeah. The ones who were like born here or who immigrated here when they were younger, they again in Toronto, like they've like I said, we've integrated them very well, and we enjoy and love their culture, and they love being a part of our culture now, and it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the last Black Pigeon video?
No.
I don't always watch him. I do sometimes like to catch up, but
I don't listen to animals because I'm a cute otter.
Trying to stop
He
my
was
stick,
talking about the feminization of the Oriental men
yeah.
Oh.
over the past decade or so. How they've gone from like Shogun to makeup wearing poof.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Living in
Okay.
this like hyper capitalist society.
Right.
And it's really weird because in that society, a lot of the older, well-paying jobs, you needed to be a 3-piece suit wearing badass motherfucker.
Right.
Nowadays, with the tech companies and the sort of the feminization, but also the Americanization of these tech companies and the symbiosis between the West that these companies have, because we're one of their biggest markets. We are their biggest market, the West as a whole. It's allowed them to sort of adopt that casual nature at work.
Hmm.
With things like video games and technology companies. So the higher ups, the more affluent and more important people, like your engineers and stuff, they'll come in now in jeans and a tank top with fucking bleach blonde hair that has like 6 colors streaked down the one side, and that's become sort of more. And yeah, I can kind of see how more. More and more women are finding that less and less appealing.
Hmm. It's too much of a good thing, is what it is. It's like you could sit there and be like, I love eating these sugary snacks, but over time, they affect
It's gonna
you.
make you fat,
They're gonna make you fat. They're gonna make you depressed. They're gonna make you sick.
and you're gonna get to beat us.
It's kind of the same thing with Japan. Like they don't seem to do things in like small increments. It's either one thing or all of it, and it's one of the biggest problems I find with their situation. Really has to stem to how both the family is designed and their work situation.
Mhm.
Because it's really expensive to live in Japan. You need to have a high paying job. or at least you have to have enough to at least.
Well, again, that region of most of Asia is very expensive.
Yeah.
Very expensive. Again, hence why the big influx into the West is because, in the 80s, 90s, a family could sell their family home, make a dozen or so $1 million Canadian, move to Canada, and the next 2-3 generations are going to live pretty well off that. They'll start a little bodega, a little mom and pop business somewhere, something like that, and do okay for themselves for the next couple generations.
Yeah.
As opposed to living there and living in their old running down flat and not have been part of that sale to the developers to make it more modern and more expensive. And so, it's like a gentrification on a massive scale.
It's a huge thing because it's really expensive to live there. So like I said, you need to have that high paying job, or at least enough that you can support yourself, or you're working, you don't have a 40-hour work week. In Japan, you're probably looking at like a regular week is probably looking more like 60 hours, if not more. And that's not assuming you're a workaholic, because half the time they end up with overtime that they don't get paid for.
Yeah.
You have a project you have to finish, so you could be there for days. And people work themselves to death. So you've got family members that you never see all the time. Like there's a real thing about them going across the seas to work and not seeing their family members for years because they work so much. So you've got dysfunctional families. You're stressed because of work. You're overworking yourself. They don't eat properly either. Like most of the time they're eating out or they're eating quick meals because they don't have the time to cook. So, like, all those fundamental things that are really important to a group of human beings, they're missing on it. So, socially, they're very dysfunctional because of it. We're not much different, even
that and a couple atomic bombs will do that to you.
Oh, yeah. So they're very dysfunctional. And I mean, you come across here and it's not that much different. Like, I mean, the difference is like most people don't exceed the 40-hour work week. But depending on what you do or what you have to do to pay for your family, you don't have as much time spent with them. Sorry.
Okay.
Did you just pull a functional?
Mm-hmm.
Did your brain just explode?
A little bit.
I hate it when that happens. But yeah, I mean, before we get off this topic, I just thought it's kind of ironic that in that culture, people are actively intentionally going that extra step, like in some cases to the point of death, whereas in one of their neighbors, people are being forced to work that much to death. Well, actually, in a couple of their neighbors, now that I think of it. Anyway, so I had this really, I saw this morning, and this really kind of scares me. Again, it's Canada. Do you want Skynet, people? This is how we're going to get Skynet. A Canadian firm is developing the technology to decide on what is hate, to analyzing the data to help curb hateful messages that could lead to violence. Can you bring up the screen, please? So this shithole is called HateBase, and this motherfucker, Timothy Quinn, oh my God, he looks like such a cuckboy. Jen? Mm-hmm. Can you bring up the screen?
Share Functional's desktop, please.
There we go. So remember this fucking face. If you see this fucking... No, I'm just kidding. Don't do anything. But just remember this face, because this cuckboy is probably going to start Skynet for fucking Twitter, and it's going to kill us all in the end. But it's okay. Most of us will be dead by then anyway.
He looks like a fat Ben Affleck.
Yeah, kind of. I can see that in the ridge in the hair. So basically, as you may or may not know, guys, we have hate speech laws in Canada.
Yeah.
It's not really our shining moment.
Freedom out there.
And a majority of Canadians actually detest it and would like to see it gone. However, that's not how we work up here. What's that, Data?
I said if it's a majority, take care of it, damn it.
We try, but for some reason we keep voting Blackie McBlackface into office.
You mean corn pop?
Cone pop. Thanks, Rebel. So
He's a Cocoa Pebble.
this
Yeah.
this Toronto firm, Hate Base, the name is so cringy. Hate Base. I run Hate Base. If you ever say mean things on Twitter, we're gonna come get you. They rely on software that digs through the web several times an hour to spot potentially hateful words, which are flagged to NGOs interested in countering hate to social media companies. Oh, isn't that interesting? The pieces are falling together, Data.
Doesn't it then like collect your name and address and phone?
Oh, it'll collect anything and everything that it can get its hands on.
Right.
And of course, I wouldn't put it past something like Facebook or Twitter, who's already guilty of selling your private data to other companies, that
Sure.
this NGO probably funded shithole of a company is then buying that information and then going to use it for these big censorship projects that we see happening.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time. It's all about accumulating data, Then you got to categorize it. Then you got to, put it in a little pigeonhole, and then you got to tie links to it, to other links, and eventually, they're going to know it all.
I mean,
they're going to know it all, and no matter what.
This is them developing a tool for evil. I don't care what anybody says. Censorship is fucking evil, and I mean the tool and the process that they're using, and they're being very thorough. So I can respect that, but not for the ends. I mean, they're breaking down hate speech from hundreds of different languages and everything. That part is cool, but the censorship.
That's also problematic because so many different languages, you could have one word.
Oh, sure, no, it's definitely problematic. I'm just saying the innovation part of it is actually kind of cool, but everything else about it is absolute fucking trash.
Right, a fag in the United States is not a fag in England, and it just is what it is. But yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And the crazy thing too is, all these damn algorithms, they aren't worth shit.
Well, they aren't smoking a bundle of sticks up in England. That's all I got to say.
I mean, more than words, really. Oh god.
I mean, look, YouTube. It's talking about our algorithms have to learn. How many years have the algorithms been learning? And they're still fucking up. So, or are they fucking up, or are they doing exactly what they're supposed to do, which is, screw pretty much everybody that has a voice.
So again, this is all stuff we've really been seeing, but it's going to do more than words. The context around questionable content, not just the words themselves, are being analyzed before being determined whether it should be taken down. Humans grade the entries into Hate Base's lexicon from mildly offensive, such as bimbo, to extremely offensive, such as the N-word. I don't get it. I have neighbors. I don't see why that's such a bad word. What am I, some kind of nigger? Quinn said Hate Base also uses several factors to analyze the way words are being used in a sentence, such as by searching for pilot fish. A reference to the small aquatic creatures that live alongside sharks, pilotfish are words or symbols often attached to targeted slurs. Quinn said pilotfish could include the word asshole or the cartoon-tuned hate symbol Pepe the Frog.
Anything
Yeah.
Anything can be anything. Great. You're going to have a database that anything can be anything. I mean, hell, we're people that love to be bimbos. There are websites dedicated to bimbo life, so how is that?
I remember there was a clown on TV. It was like bimbo, right. I'm a happy bimbo.
Right. And also bimbo in Italy is baby. So
yeah. I mean, it's
ridiculous.
It's cool. It's funny, but it's also terrifying.
Well, it's
because we see this unfolding all over the Western world, and
I'm more
Kind
scared.
of like that one Spanish girl who dared to name her dog after the Spanish word for black.
I'm more scared or creeped out by the
Well,
commercial aspect of it. In other words, not this database, but you talking about something interested in buying, and all of a sudden the ads are popping up the next
It
time
already
you go on
does.
the web because your
Yeah, but-
goddamn cell phone is spying on you. Okay,
Oh,
that fucking bugs me a lot more than this. Because hate speech is, again, it's all fucking, the flavor of the day, the flavor
Yeah.
of the month.
well, I mean, like Sam nailed it on the head. It's just a grab of power. They're just using another means to grab power and influence politics.
mm-hmm.
Again, look at your own Democratic Party. This stuff seeped into the party. The party is on the verge of dying.
No, they didn't change. They just use different rhetoric now. It's still the same tactics, just different rhetoric. That's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, the Democratic Party. I'm a Democrat. The Democratic Party left me a long time
A
ago.
long time ago, yeah.
So now you can consider me, I guess, centrist, and a lot of people consider that a hateful term. What the fuck does that mean, the centrist? What are you a fence sitter?
Hopefully,
guess.
hopefully we don't get flagged for you mentioning centrist. Oh yeah, you can go to the next one.
Okay, so I just
But I mean, sorry, Data. Like I feel the same way because, like I said, I'm a liberal, but I'm not a part of the Liberal Party of Canada anymore.
Right.
They left me a while ago because they've become so illiberal that now
Yeah.
I'm like center left, so a centrist, and
Well,
you do
have a choice between Clintonites, which are all fucking banker kissing ass, or the fucking insane,
well, like you said, at the end of the day, both parties are the same coin, just different
Right.
sides and different
Right.
rhetoric.
Yeah.
right.
But my original point was that I see this sort of, politically correct SJW nonsense creeping into certain areas, and it's just eating them. And
It's
it
just
seemed to hit
SJW.
the Democratic Party in the last two cycles really hard because we're going to vote for Hillary because she's a woman. No, that's not going to work. And no, it didn't work. Here,
Shit. Yeah, corrupt bitch. That's what she was.
I'm
Yeah.
worried about,
they're all corrupt bitches in the end.
I'm worried about
Yeah.
Chinese social. What is this? The Chinese social. Not the social media. The social.
The social credit.
Yeah, the
Social credit system. Yeah, no, exactly.
Coming
Who
here.
the hell do you think helped develop that? But
Google.
And Google is developing all this shit. And
Right.
Mhm.
dollars to donuts, Google probably owns or is invested or owns this fucking shithole. What the fuck were they called? Hate base.
Right. Or has put plenty of money into it. And
Yeah, they either own it wholly or they have a vested financial interest in them.
and you want to put a tinfoil hat on, that's fine. But I hate to tell you, the CIA has put money into all of these damn places because they've come to the realization that instead of having hard data and files in their own, we've got a fucking population that's ready to tell them everything and put it up on their own Facebook account.
Yeah, I blame social media.
So,
That's why on my personal social media, and I've tried to instill
put shit
this
on mine.
onto my. I've got 9 nieces and a nephew, or it's 7 nieces. I don't a whole lot of fucking brothers and sisters that went out and had fucking kids. So I tried to instill them growing up in this information age and the social media age. Be careful and to the parents to educate them because I'm so wired into the system. Be careful of what they post on social media. When they're young, don't post pictures of them. You can privately send them, email them, whatever, knowing that it's going to be out there, but not in any sort of public display.
don't say
creepers out there.
Don't say you're going on vacation and you're going to be gone.
Yeah. Don't put any of your personal information out there, especially not in the open, and especially not about your.
On my social media, I didn't tell you I still have a job. I was like, nope, I'm unemployed. And I had a job.
Sorry, I'm out of tea,
Nobody where I
so
worked at.
my throat's a little dry.
There's a lot of people that think this Netflix and whatnot, that's all just a way of being paid off too. Because if you think about it, okay, you got Obama making what a few $100 million that Netflix is giving him, and all these other people that are like ex-government people. Now, how the hell can Netflix even afford that? I mean, if you sold a Netflix subscription to every person on the world, how the hell can you start giving people hundreds of millions of dollars salary for stuff they haven't even made yet?
Well, they're certainly selling your data, your viewing habits, trends.
But
They're certainly selling that information to interested
In
parties.
other words, how much money could they make off of that to offset what they're spending?
I haven't really thought about it in depth, but I would imagine it's fairly easy. I don't know anybody who really doesn't have a Netflix account.
Right, and
I mean, they're not recording billions in profits, but they're obviously
Testing shows at the very least.
well, yeah, they're testing shows and they're making money.
Well, I don't know how much. A lot of people think that the CIA backs them too. In other words, it's a
Well, again, I wouldn't be
It's a
surprised
huge-
if somebody is also subsidizing them in some
it's
way.
a
Yeah,
huge slush fund that people get when they play the ball.
it's a possibility.
It's their retirement package.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on to the next article because I'm sitting here like laughing to myself because Quebec has less than 5 days of propane left due to the.
Yeah, I haven't heard of this. So what the hell is going on, Jen?
Okay, so there was a strike at the Canadian National Railway Co., and it has left Quebec with fewer than 5 days before it runs out of propane, said Premier Francois Legault. Sorry, French people, I don't speak French very good. Who warned of an emergency that could wreak havoc at hospitals, nursing homes, and farms. The shortage comes as pressure mounts on a one-day-old Trudeau cabinet to reconvene Parliament ahead of schedule and legislate the 3,200 striking workers back to work. Actually, I think I was hearing people complain about that. Quebec has already started to ration propane, narrowing it to less than half the typical 6 million liters per day, Legault said. The province has about 12 million liters in reserve. Oh boy. We start to make choices, he said Thursday. That means we have enough for 4 days, 4.5 days. Priority has been given to health centers and retirement residents that rely on propane heating as well as farms, which use it to dry grain and heat barns and greenhouses. We could lose a lot of animals, a lot of food. We're in an emergency, Legault told reporters in Quebec City. Honestly, we can't draw out this strike for a long time. They wouldn't have this issue, you know. There's this thing that we keep pushing on them that they keep saying, no, we don't need your dirty oil, Alberta. It's called a pipeline. The premier expressed hope for a settlement between the CN Rail and the union, but called on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the opposition parties to pass back to work legislation if necessary ahead of Parliament's scheduled return on December 5th. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe put forward an emergency motion in his provincial legislature Thursday that called for immediate action to resolve the strike. The NDP opposition blocked the motion because the NDP doesn't really have your best interests at heart, Quebec, just saying.
Well, I think they showed them that in the last federal.
Each day that a work stoppage continues is a day of moving product to market that our agricultural producers, potash industry, which isn't doing that well, energy sector cannot get back, Moe said. Alberta's energy and agricultural ministers have demanded more specific steps to avert economic damage, asking Trudeau to call Parliament and enact a back-to-work bill. Canadian Propane Association CEO Nathaniel St. Pierre said that six-hour truck lines for propane has already formed in Sarnia, Ontario. It's having a huge impact. We're very concerned because propane infrastructure relies heavily on rail, St. Pierre told the Canadian press. There's no pipeline that brings propane to Quebec. Just saying, about 85% of the province's propane comes via rail, the bulk of it from Sarnia, some from Edmonton, the country's two propane trading hubs. The gas is critical to fueling mining operations and heating facilities, from water treatment plants to promote communication towers. Through people only think about it as barbecue, St. Pierre said. There's some farmers that are being told that they will not have access to propane to dry their crops because there are priority applications that need to be taken care of, she said. You're going to have to choose between chickens being alive in a barn versus drying crops. That's really scary.
Somewhere Hank Hill is just having a complete mental breakdown.
Yes, he is.
Propane and propane accessories.
St. Pierre echoed various industry groups calling on the federal government for immediate action. Conductors, train persons, and yard workers took to the picket lines early Tuesday morning, halting freight trains across the country. The railway workers, who've been without a contract since July 23rd, have said they're concerned about the long hours, fatigue, and what they consider dangerous working conditions. So, I mean,
It's okay, guys. The Liberal government will bring in temporary foreign workers to take your jobs.
Well, fixing the infrastructure isn't as important as, stopping mean words.
Right? We got to keep funding that. We need the thought police.
Well,
The secret Canadian Gestapo.
getting your gas from
Oh,
Narnia is kind of problematic too.
From where?
Narnia.
Narnia. Sarnia.
there's a little part of me that feels sympathy for them, but there's also a part of me who's like, like 8 years ago, we could have started that pipeline that would provide you with the propane that you need.
Have either of you guys taken the train out in Canada lately?
I've never been on the Canadian Rail.
No.
I've been,
Not allowed.
like on passenger trains between cities in southern Ontario, but that's about as far as I went.
Yeah.
I've mostly driven like all over the United States, though.
That's cool.
Yeah, I use city transit mostly. So I mean, I
Same.
bus,
Relegated to that.
trains. But yeah, across Canada, no. It's one of those things that you do as a holiday. You don't really necessarily do it as a whole, because if you're using the train to get to work or to cross the province, you're going to be at it for a while.
Yeah,
The train.
It's become more of a novelty here than anything.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely more expensive than driving, and still a little bit more expensive than flying.
Trains were really responsible for a huge growth in the United States, and
Here too.
and
That's why CN is such a Canadian National Railway. That they are the premier the railway in all across Canada. So them being on strike, that's why this is causing such a backlog, because in a certain area in Quebec they're striking. They're not striking everywhere, so that's why it can get everywhere else. But I brought this up because Sora, if you're in chats lurking, or if you're going to hear this in the future, I brought this up for you, honey. This is in British Columbia. So they rolled out this new app in British Columbia that allows Tesla drivers to remotely drive their cars or summon their cars or some bullshit.
Right. You press a button on your cell phone, and the damn car picks you up from the front door of the mall.
Only
Nice.
This was captured on video, and basically the car was just it's in the wrong lane, and it's just driving very erratically. It doesn't really know what it's going, and the issue is that because the technology is so new, there's no laws for or against or regulating any part of this in British Columbia. So I mean, it's people have those concerns because A, there's no insurance. B, there's no liable law. So the actual person who's summoning the car isn't liable. Tesla isn't liable. The Uber app developer isn't liable. And that could kill somebody. So obviously there's some kind of concern there. But I just think it's hilarious watching this car in the wrong lane. And in the article they go on and to tell you how it was driving very erratically and very unsuredly. So it's really funny.
There's a few YouTube channels that are dedicated on the Tesla auto driving,
Yeah.
And these, of course, are the ones where you're sitting behind the wheel, and it's pretty much taking care of your speed and.
So sort of like an AI controlled cruise control.
Well, yeah, but it actually also will avoid will change lanes for you and literally drive, steer for you too, and it's actually pretty impressive. But yeah. This is completely new, where you're not even in the car and you're calling it like a puppy.
Yeah. And so, I mean, this is from earlier in the month, but hopefully soon, they're because our licensing is done by province. Hopefully, British Columbia can get their asses in gear and be like, hey, we need to pass some sort of legislation to put this in law, like the person operating the vehicle and summoning the vehicle and everything are liable for this shit.
Right.
Because I don't think that the producer should be liable unless there's a fault. But if, for whatever reason, the person has an accident with the car, there should be some laws on the books to protect people.
Interesting though, because I mean, if you're calling the car and the car is supposed to know what it's doing, who would be at fault? Because you obviously didn't want the car to get into an accident.
Yep.
And an accident is an accident. It's not a purpose. That's why they call it an accident.
Yep. Well, that's why I was very specific in saying, unless there's a fault with the car, because obviously this or the product itself. So this is a perfect example of it being faulty. Right. And so, yes, I would say, hey, Tesla and the app developer, you guys are liable in this case. Whereas if it was somebody summoning the vehicle and intentionally trying to hit somebody, or, I can't really think of any other scenarios, but intentionally, remotely, James Bondy through his cell phone driving the car and hit somebody, then that would be user fault.
Right.
But again, it all boils down to the fact that none of this, there's no law at all for this in BC yet. I wonder if there's law for that here.
Now, is that isn't actually on the street? That's still in
a parking lot, on private property, yeah. And here,
most likely, it's going very, very slow too. So it's not really going to kill somebody.
Yeah, and you can kind of see that there's more than this guy taking video. Like this guy over here is taking some video. These people are checking this out. There's nobody driving that car. What's going on here? Are we being pranked?
Slam on its brakes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's wild though where we're heading.
I can't wait. I honestly cannot wait because, with that kind of technology being quote unquote perfected, obviously nothing can really be perfect, but perfected to a point where it's safe enough that we can then develop some sort of anti-gravity lift system for them and have 3D travel.
There you go.
Yeah,
where are the goddamn hover cars? I want to.
Yeah, hover cars.
We're going to get to the Jetsons at some point.
Don't worry. And I hear a common, oh, I don't want hover cars because then, you're just going to have lanes of traffic in the air. Well, no, you're not, because we have technology like this now where it more or less can, through GPS, drive itself.
You just talked about anti-gravity, and you want to talk about a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. I can rack it up for you when it comes to anti-gravity.
Let's have a separate stream for that, because I'm very interested in anti-gravity and actually developing a gravity generator. It was kind of stolen. But yeah. Oh my God. This one. Oh my God. Canada is we're a joke. Bring that screen up there, Jen.
Canada is positive. That's why they say it's Canada. It isn't Canada.
Yes, we Canada. Jen, can you bring up the article?
Oh, sure. La.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is why we're a joke. So a 27-year-old DJ from Dubai ended up winning a Nova Scotia island. It's a I don't know how this island, again, I'm so against foreign ownership of Canadian land. I think it should be Canadian land. You can't, if you're
you're talking about Canadian public lands.
No, like owning land in Canada, you have to be a Canadian citizen.
I don't know about that. I mean, well,
I do. I feel very strongly about it. I mean, this is more lighthearted in that basically he's a Portuguese national of Indian origin who grew up in the United Arab Emirates, and as an April Fool's joke, he was playing at this like craps table to win an island in Nova Scotia in Canada. He's never been to Canada, but he, owns this island now, which is actually kind of hilarious. And, it's a 2.4 hectare island. It's about 200 kilometers east of Halifax off the coast of Goldboro. And, it's called Hall Point Island or Hurricane Island. And other than trees, rocks, and sand, there's not much else there. You can see that in the picture. It's a decent enough island. That's a place you could probably set up shop and live your later years in peace and harmony, and probably get the Wi-Fi out there.
Get your 20 wives. Yeah, get your 20
But the
wives
kid's
hanging out
20.
there with
The
you.
kid's 27. Now he owns a piece of Canada. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's kind of a joke because we're like, yeah, you want to give away a piece of our country at a craps table? Sure. Who cares, man? It's
but
Canada.
who gave it away? I mean, it was obviously somebody who owned the island that gave it away.
Yes, well, the casino in the UAE actually had ownership of it. I don't know who initially bought it, but
Right.
obviously they had ownership and gave it away as a prize. And you can see on this map, it's still part of Canada. Unfortunately, it's the eastern coast. So no offense to anybody that lives there. I mean, just
Here in Florida, we have a lot of out-of-state home ownership because people buy houses here for
vacation homes. Yeah, retirement homes,
And-
vacation.
Hell, there are so many goddamn Canadians that come down here from Hollywood to Fort Lauderdale on the beach. Every single hotel turns Canadian for 5 months a year. Solid Canadian.
And I love the quotes because they asked the guy who owns who owned the island, who owns the casino, why Canada? And he said Canada comes up always as a top 3 destinations for customers. The prime market is millennials, and it's funny because he says, and it's a place that has islands which we could give away. Is a funny part of that part of there was a mini gold rush in that area in the mid 1800s, since obviously is drained up, but yeah, it's actually like very, very nice country. As you can see, again, it's a long island, but it's fairly sizable. 2.4 hectares is decent land, kind of close to the shore. It's so funny though. I couldn't stop laughing when I read this. I'm like, we're just giving away parts of our country to
Can he build on the island, or does he have to keep it as is?
he could probably get zoning permits. Yeah,
Okay.
so it's not that hard to build here. You just it's generally municipal codes. Looks like it's stable enough to build on. Like I said, probably build a cottage and a dock so that he might have to spend some of his. I think he also won 153,000 in UAE dollars, which roughly translates into like 30-something thousand Canadian.
Oh.
So that'll probably cover the taxes the first year.
Yeah, they say the tax assessment for the island is $21,200,
There you
annual
go.
rate of 129. So yeah, that'll cover his taxes. But I mean, if he, if he's got the money, build a little dock and get the zoning permit to have the dock on the other side, and maybe build a little shed there so you can store a car, and you'd be set.
Yeah.
It's really funny because the guy who won was like he thought it was hilarious too, because but the headlines around here Dubai are Indian Portuguese DJ who still lives with parents doesn't know what to do with island. I'm like, you guys are really killing me over this. Again, it's so funny because it's a gag that happened to him on April Fools, but it's also a gag that we're so funny. I couldn't.
I
stop
wouldn't. I
laughing.
wouldn't be surprised if the gambling establishment got the island as a debt payment, and then couldn't do anything with it, couldn't sell it, so ended up using it as a prize. Probably made more people gambling for the island than they could have sold it in the first place. I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, this one's funny. So, what's that parody site you guys have in the United States? Is it the Lemon?
Oh, the Onion.
The Onion, right. So up here we have something called the Beaverton, which is basically the Canadian version of the Onion. And Jan, can you share my screen? Because this one also just kind of made me chuckle really bad. We've talked about this before. Places like Toronto, our rent and the housing market is disastrous, and mostly because it's overpriced and blah, 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 blah. But, this new Toronto dating app replaces first date with moving in together to save on rent. So I just thought it was funny.
Nice.
Basic, the kids love their apps. And yeah. It actually, not only personally, but it does on a more statistical scale. Younger people are moving in together faster and faster outside of any sort of commitment or wedlock just to save on rent. So it's delicious satire in that it's kind of somewhat based on reality. I'm just lucky. I have someone that I love.
Yeah. So now it's a roommate with benefits finder.
Yeah. That's a good one. So at least, Jen, I don't want to get too much into this, but I mean, at least
Sure.
Enbridge is actually, this was reported today that the export, we've been talking about this in other streams, the export projects are being delayed. Companies like Enbridge are trying to find more ways to send more through the existing pipelines and the existing contracts that they have. So hopefully that will pan out and do it in a, like we can both agree, a responsible manner.
Mhm.
And hopefully no bad things will happen from this, but good that it'll help get the exports flowing a little bit better. Because with everything that's been going on there, I have another article, and this has been coming up. This was also reported today. A 15-year-old boy charged in violent robbery on Wednesday, leaving one woman unconscious in Alberta because of the financial system going on there, which is the general populace and a lot of the middle class who've since fallen from the middle class, that crime is being rampant. And like, we're seeing lots of stories like this where kids are robbing liquor stores.
Yeah.
Kids are robbing variety stores. Like we spoke about before, they're robbing the fucking charity bins. It's getting pretty bad. And a platitude, I don't think anything's going to come from this, but on Friday, Trudeau's sitting down with the Calgary and Vancouver mayors, and obviously with the Western tension, I hope it's more than just a platitude. Nobody, even our own government, takes him seriously, but we're Canadian, so more often than not, we like to sit down and actually try to figure some shit out. I hope it's not more platitudes. I'm with it garnering more and more attention in the national media. We're hoping some sort of action is going to be taken. With Trudeau, it's always been half a truth, half a lie. He'll give half of what he said, but then lie about half of that.
Mhm.
What exactly? How would you go about stopping that?
Well, the problem a lot of the problem stems from it's a multi-pronged problem, but basically just to brass tacks, like the representation between provinces is based erroneously, I believe, in I always get them mixed up, the House and the Senate.
No, I mean,
Since we have a parliamentary system, both are based on population, but I think it was the Senate should be representative equally across the board between the provinces. Over-regulation over energy production in Western Canada and
that's
sort
why
of...
are robbing liquor stores.
Well, because
lack
the
of jobs.
economy's terrible, and over-regulation has killed what should be booming industries.
Our
Like
crime rate-
legalization of marijuana, the energy industries, we should be fucking global leaders, and we're not because of over-regulations.
But
It's the red tape and the over-regulation is strangling a lot of the and protesters and NGO money. It's all these different factors that are really screwing the economy. Again, back to I think it was you, Data, that said it earlier in the stream. I forget exactly what you said, but it was basically the idea of following the money and
yeah.
and if you follow the money from all of these things, you can see that there's a very high concentrated effort from foreign interests, foreign countries who are energy producers funding these types of things to put a stranglehold on them, especially and it's been happening here in Canada for quite a while, and it's both parties. They're both allowing this bullshit, and it's basically right now putting a stranglehold on the Bank of Canada. Like Alberta has been bankrolling a lot of deficit in Canada for the last long while.
I had a discussion with Jen about this.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if she ever talked to you about it or not, but
Her and I talk about a lot of things, Canada.
in 1974, Bank of Canada was originally owned by you.
Yeah, it was publicly owned, and then it was sold off. Yeah.
And the reason, what its mandate was to loan at no interest to public programs.
Yep.
Completely interest free. And in '74, the IMF took it over. And ever since then, your economy has gone into the crapper because you've got more and more and more debt, and the debt has spiraled out of control, and it's debt on top of debt on top of debt. And
And there's other factors to that too, Data. My province, especially Ontario, we were the energy producing powerhouse of Canada.
but imagine if you had no debt right now. Where would you be? Right
We
now?
would be living like the fucking Jetsons, believe me.
That's what-
But
You guys-
yeah, of course. No, I'm on board with you. There's this.
I mean, here we have the Fed, and there are so many people that are against the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve here was tricked upon us, and it's
It's also a private concern.
It's also a private concern.
Yeah, centralized. A private centralized bank is the ruination of a wealthy nation.
Right. It was the elites that said if I can control the currency of a country, I don't care who's in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
And
It's all these factors and the poor. A lot of people say it's the poor decision making where we sell electricity. We still do to this day to places like Michigan at a deficit. We're selling a product and paying them to take it. That makes no sense. And I'm more inclined to believe no, this is intentional. This is intentional in addition to all these other factors, and in selling off what again our hydro generation in Ontario, massive industry, again, was sold from a publicly owned utility to a private concern, and it's caused all sorts of problems. And they all bleed into the same overarching problem, into bankrupt Canada. I don't care what anybody says. Follow the money. They all lead to the same fucking goal.
Right. I mean, listen, you guys were very.
I hate to sound all Alex Jonesy and stuff, but like,
listen,
it's not because, again, if you read the material, if you follow the money, if you read
almost
these exposés, they show you where everything is.
It's almost insulting to say conspiracy theory and to say Alex Jonesy, because you know what? Yeah, Alex Jones is an entertainer, sure. And
he does a lot more hyperbole than I do. Yeah,
sure, it's a lot of hyperbole, but he's based in fact. He reads it from fact, from reports. He may slant it one way or another, but he's no worse or better than the fucking news you hear. Maybe a little more entertaining, but other than that, it's pretty much the frogs are gay, because you know what, frogs are actually very non-committal when it comes to male and female, natural.
Yeah, they're non-binary.
Yeah, like I was saying, it's hyperbole. So he's putting on the theater, the act, and everything. But yes, there were certain frogs that they found that.
And also
they have nuggets of truth in there.
There are chemicals in those streams. There are chemicals in those waters. The goddamn pharmaceutical industry gives us so many goddamn drugs, and our water treatment plants.
We're pissing it into the water, literally.
Right. We don't clean up the water for pharmaceuticals, so we've got fucking trouts with
heart Sam.
in them. So. It's true. I mean, it isn't bullshit. It's true.
And yeah, Sam, you're right. In reality, in the real world, having no debt is kind of bad. But I mean, idealistically, not having debt and having all this money to spend on, whatever.
I mean, listen, that's what they said. Listen, when Clinton was in office and we had the boom of the internet. At one point, we had no debt in this country, and they said that would be the ruination of the dollar, because now we wouldn't be able to sell our goddamn bonds because our bond system is all based on debt. But you know what? It's the big.
Well, there's debt, and then there's what the fuck is going on, North America.
Right.
U.S., Canada, like you guys, the debt is just astronomical for these two powerhouse nations, or what should be.
Our money is debt. There is no asset involved.
Well, yeah, and like we were just saying, it's that privatized, centralized banking that has done that.
Right. And they can create more and more money, and the cash gets printed like it's it's like it's going out of style, and it disappears. Pallets of it, tons of it disappear. Okay, and then you've got the shit where you've got Biden's son getting rich, just getting thrown out of the goddamn armed forces and getting a job where he gets $60,000 a month. It's great work if you can get it, but I'm sitting here trying to. $2,000 a year.
I'm less bothered by that than most, I think, because nepotism and doing favors is kind of shady business or whatever. But I'm like, you know what? He got us a job. I don't fucking care.
And what I'm saying is, it's like the people with loads of money, deep pockets, that are trying to influence.
Yeah. No. I get that aspect of it. Yeah.
So that's.
I'm just saying, as a generality, what he did, I don't really care that much. It's just like when Trump's when how they're trying to impeach him this time around. It's like, I don't give a shit. So he made some deals with another country. What the fuck do you think the leader of a country is supposed to do, you dumb piece of shit?
Right. And
that's what your leaders do.
Right.
They negotiate with other countries to do things. And you know what? If there was suspicion of wrongdoing there, then yes, why wouldn't you ask?
Well, not only that,
if there was wrongdoing,
kind of set up, wasn't he? Because The whole point of the fucking Russian investigation was that there was Russian collusion. And then
Well, yeah. They've been crying wolf about everything ever since he started announcing he was going to run.
But you come to find out that the Russians were in the Ukraine, that were doing the colluding, that were doing the goddamn Hillary server and all this other bullshit. So he calls up the Ukraine. He goes, you know what? These guys have been throwing shit at me for the past 2 years about Russian collusion. I was told that it was in the Ukraine. Can you look into it for me?
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It kind of makes sense. And whether or not it's funny because they treat him like he's the worst Republican that ever lived. He's donated more to the Democratic Party than Bernie Sanders ever has.
Right. I mean,
he's been a corporate New York Democrat his entire life, and he infiltrated the Republican Party.
Right.
Because people want, like how I see it, people are pining for more and more middle of the road, willing to hear two sides of an argument kind of leader in the Western world.
He stood the Republican Party on its ear. I mean,
yeah, and he treated the Republicans that were running against him as political opponents, just like he treats any of his Democratic opponents. He treats them all the same.
Right.
I mean, how can you not have respect for somebody getting into politics who's going to do that?
He's an outsider, and that's the reason he was voted in. He's an outsider. He's not into government. He didn't even really want to be president. He said it for 20 years beforehand.
Yeah. Well, Sam, he is on record quoted saying that he would run Republican because it would be easier. Right. And I agree with him. It is easier.
Right. And he said he didn't want to run, but if he has to, he will, because he sees that the government isn't really, protecting the country. He sees a lot of bullshit. But
that's what your federal government is there to do.
He's no nice guy either. He's a fucking asshole. I mean,
he's an asshole. He blusters.
He's screwed people over in business left and right. He's lied straight out. I mean,
he's a bully. He's a bully. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can give you examples.
But a bully isn't a racist. A bully isn't a sexist. A bully isn't a rapist. A bully isn't a mass murderer. A bully isn't a fucking concentration camp having Hitler.
Right. He's far from fucking Hitler, and it's kind of bullshit. The whole, even Jimmy Carter has said that he has never seen in all his life, he has never seen an entire world, an entire
the animosity,
against
the vitriol
one person as he has with the media and Trump today. And I mean,
well, look at the 24-hour news cycle, and look at what's being thrown out there even more and even faster. Social media has sped that up infinitesimally.
Listen, they literally manipulate the video
infinitely, not infinitesimally.
Cut and paste and make it look. I mean, over and over and over again. You can have conversations with people. Oh yeah, when he had that speech and he didn't condemn the Nazis over at Charlottesville, he did. He did.
Yeah, a cursory research will show. Yeah, he kind of denounced everybody who was doing wrong.
Right, but then he said, but there were bad.
You forgot the first 30 seconds of what you just showed me.
There were bad people on both sides. That's all they bring up. And then the other thing, when he visited Japan and he dumped the goddamn fish food into the koi pond. Oh my God, an international incident. And then you see the full video, and the goddamn the prime minister of Japan did the same damn thing. And then there was another story where he snubbed some girl in a wheelchair in the Oval Office. And of course, again, they clipped the goddamn video. And little do you know that at the very beginning of the video, when they completely clipped it out, he was on his goddamn knees in front of the wheelchair talking to the girl. So it's all fucking lies and bullshit. And you know what? You don't need to make shit up. There's enough there. You can be honest about his foibles and his problems and his
The
being
problems, the
asshole.
actual problems with his character, not
Right,
these
the
made up
reality
ones.
of it, not make it up. And this is the same thing with this stupid.
But I think that they're afraid that if they do that, if they concentrate on, his bullyish-ness, it'll make him even more popular, because that's what he is. He is kind of a populist type of president, in that his rhetoric, how he spoke, just sort of like the next guy next to you would speak and just talk to you like a fucking human being.
I'm just
And give that American bluster of, you know what, I'm American. I don't need to take this shit.
I
You're
think-
either going to give me a good deal or you're not.
I worry because I think a lot of people put too much into him. In other words, he was an outsider, but he's not an outsider like Bernie was an outsider. I mean, and
I think he's more of an outsider because he's not a mainstay political figure.
The very first week he was in office, you know what he did? He sold everybody's private information to the goddamn Silicon Valley. That's the first thing he did in office. So I mean, this whole
you want to get some traction against him? There you go.
I mean, this whole Q thing where people think that he's playing four-dimensional chess, and there's this fight of good and evil, and the military came to Trump and said, listen, Mr. Trump, we need you to be president, and we're fighting a war of the elites, and blah, blah, blah. There's this whole backstory, which I'm afraid that we're being really led down the road by our noses with that. And in actuality, I think, listen, you don't make $1 billion if you're not friends with the bankers. And if you're friends with the bankers, you are an elite. And if you are an elite, you're a globalist. And if you're a globalist, maybe you're really just in it for yourself.
Mhm.
Maybe you're looking to make 100 billion out of your 1 billion. I don't know. I it worries me because again, he ain't a nice guy, and he may be saying.
No, I'm not saying, and I'm not saying.
No,
he's the
I'm
best leader of
saying is the shit he says because you want to hear it, because he needs to say it, because he's got other things in mind. I don't know, So I worry about that, and what really upsets me is the Democratic Party can't clean its own house and cut its ties with the big banks, and
that's why I think if Tulsi or someone like a Yang or someone like a Tulsi got a fair shake, wasn't being censored on social media, got a fair shake in exposure and being able to talk and because they're both anti-war candidates. They're both mostly outsider candidates. I know Tulsi, but I mean, come on, it's Hawaii. She's in Congress, but she's relatively new to Congress to most people who run for president. I think if they got a fair shake, they'd be a better platform to spearhead the Democrats back into a more rational state of being and get rid of your war hawks, your fucking corporatists, just get rid of these people.
Listen, and you could include Bernie in that, even though,
I definitely would.
The one thing
He's a fucking major racist piece of shit. I fucking hate Bernie. I used to buy his shit before I became educated on his past and everything. I was like, you know what? His messages really resound with me. Why can't we do a little bit more to be a better society? But then I started doing the research and I'm like, this guy's a piece of shit.
I haven't. I'd love to see that research. Though the one thing that kind of got me off of Bernie was the way he folded at the Democratic National Party when Clinton took over. He should have stood there, and he had enough people behind him. And he had a groundswell. He had a grass movement, and he could have taken over the party, but he fucking folded like
he got Hillary. Yeah.
Like a goddamn lawn chair. a cheap lawn chair. He just folded and that was it. Even to this day, when I see that Black Lives Matter couple taking over his goddamn microphone at that meeting, I mean, have some fucking balls.
It's gaff after gaff showing he has no strength.
All right, guys. I do have to go though, so I'll talk to you all later.
Sure. No worries. Have a good one.
Yeah, have fun, guys.
See you later. Yeah, I mean, have some friggin' balls. I mean, if he had even half the balls as Trump does, then so be it. But yeah,
Mhm.
Tulsi, great, a great candidate. Yang, really intelligent, great candidate.
I admit I'm a Yang Yang kind of guy, but I will admit there are some flaws with some of the stuff that he says. Thankfully, from my perspective, my political leaning, it's a minority of what he says,
Right.
and some of his policy plans. But for the most part, yes, he's a very intelligent, business-driven minded kind of guy who's well-spoken, who's educated, he's smart, he's wise. I think he would be a great front runner. But again, they're not going to put him forward because he's the outsider.
Yep.
So I thought just to, wind things down on the stream.
Yeah.
Some comedy. These are the funniest wildlife photos taken in of this year. And as we can see in the first one, we have this cute little leopard cub attacking a warthog's scrotum.
Yeah, that little lion's gonna have a really bad ending, but it looks funny.
It might very well end up to be very bad for him. Yeah. Something tells me that this was more in a domesticated setting than a wildlife setting, but it could actually be wildlife, and this is baby cub going for the first strike while mama cub or mama bear is hiding in the reeds somewhere ready to jump this warthog. That's nature. That's how they live. That's how they do shit. So it's do or die for this little kitten. How perfect is that pose?
That
pose.
Such a
Those
cat
claws.
thing.
I'm looking at my cat going, okay, don't get any ideas, cat. This is a cute one with some capybaras and a crested caracara. I love capybaras. They're so cute. They're the king of the rats.
They're good to eat.
This is kind of how I sometimes am. Oh my god, getting a little frog in the throat. This is kind of somehow as I imagine you and I streaming sometimes, Jen.
Uh-huh.
You're like, Jen.
And I'm just like,
You're
what?
like, oh, what? Were you saying something? Yes, Jen, I was saying something. And then afterwards, it's kind of like, yeah, good stream, yo.
Rub up.
That's so cute, so fucking cute. Of course, we have little baby monkey just chilling out.
Ranting monkey.
I could totally be a little butt.
That's his new little butt. That's the newest littlest butts avatar. There we go. That was my avatar because oh god, I love otters and beavers. They're so like these aquatic mammals. Oh my god, they're so funny to watch. Mr. Fish going. He hears the music. Dun,
The moment when you start wondering how fast you can swim.
Yeah, Dory is going to be lost forever.
Just keep swimming.
Got a penguin surfing. Penguins are always comedic gold, and surfing penguins is just, oh god. Got a couple of foxes just fucking around, some cubs. I love foxes. I don't know if you've ever seen domesticated foxes. They're amazing pets. The wild foxes we have here in Northern Ontario are cute as balls. Don't ever approach cubs, but full-grown ones that are a little bit more acclimated to human activity and being around, they'll actually come up and, just kind of like raccoons in that they're sort of a live and let live kind of animal, so don't fuck with them. But if they come up with you, you can kind of interact with them on some level.
Yeah.
the squirrel, I can't tell if he's getting high or doing the whole blowing on the dandelion for wishes.
He looks like he's having a little fun there. I mean, that eye glaze, you know.
The eye glaze and the tuft of hair going looks like he's getting something off that pollen. The polar bears, they're not going anywhere, and they're cute as fuck.
Apparently, they're doing really well. It's one of those things where they keep getting put on the endangered list, not because they're not doing well, but the group that's studying them is just like, but they're not going to do well in 10 years. And it's just one of those things where, like, sometimes they starve and sometimes they don't. That's how it works. Sometimes they eat really well and sometimes they don't. So when they see pictures of bears that are half starved, it's usually the end of the year. It's the end of their season. So, yeah, I mean,
or coming out of hibernation and
yeah. So yeah, they're not doing so well. Some of them die at that stage. That's how it is in real life.
it's the cycle of life.
So they're like, oh, well, this year the numbers are down, and that next year, like, the numbers are really high, and it's just one of those things where, like, well,
It fluctuates,
you really aren't paying any attention to what's really going on here, or they're just not giving proper information because they lose funding. They don't want to lose their funding.
That's a rhinoceros.
And this one, the rhinoceros, is me. And this is how I got banned off Twitter. This is Sean King. I took a massive piss all over him. Black Twitter didn't like it very much, reported me, and I've been permanently banned. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
And then a little Heidi bear cub. Very cute.
Yeah, the environmental scientists, it's not that they don't know shit, it's just they're not honest about it. They're really not honest about it.
No, because if there's worry, then funding increases. Funding is more steady. If they cause any amount of worry in the proper institutions, the institutions that give them money to make sure that there's no problems, well, let's just make sure that there are problems and that we're constantly getting funding. I'm not against funding for these things, but it has to be honest. It has to be open. It has to be transparent. Again, like we talked about in a previous stream with the Harper government silencing those types of researchers altogether to public inquiry, swung the pendulum too far to the right and was just like, or too far to the authoritarian part of our policy. And no, this stuff should be transparent so that we can get those environmental research and call them on their bullshit. Just like we can say to other environmental researchers, oh, wow, you're doing such great work. You're being honest. And yes, this species, we do need to do something with them to preserve them, or, you know, whatever problems may arise, like how we found out that there was kudzu growing in certain parts, or these invasive species from China. Like, this is good work. Yes, you're actually identifying objectively problems that need to be dealt with either now or in the future. Great. That's why these programs exist. But when there's the transparency, we can look back and say, hey, you're just fibbing. You're lying. And you're distorting the truth just so you can get more funding. Well, maybe not defund them, but hold those people actually approving those reports.
Right.
Hold them accountable.
Which nobody has a problem with that. Like, you know, even if polar bears...
Dirty fear merchants.
It's
I'm going to coin that. I'm going to be bigger than Sargon. Just you fucking wait.
But it's just how it is. It's one of those things where, like, okay, so, you know, this species should be put on a watch, like, at all times, because they jump up and down, and all right. But I mean, it's like everything up here. Everything has this problem, and I know everybody has the same problem somewhere in the U.S. You guys have it too. It's when they think we're too dumb to figure it out.
Thing is, too, that there's species going extinct all the time. You know, who are we to control that? I mean, I can understand if we caused that, then we should stop it. But who are we to save a species that is, I guess, on its way out?
Yeah.
Yeah, at some point there's been that morality infused into our species. I wouldn't say that there's anything inherently wrong with it either, but I mean, it's, you know, it is. If it is evidently a natural cycle of things that we aren't directly responsible for, then yeah, maybe we shouldn't interfere.
Because I mean, the
But
thing
that's
is,
why we have the research.
I mean, the thing is like the temperature is going to change. I'm not saying this from the point of view of like a climate change person. I'm just saying it always has. Like,
Yeah,
you know, and the thing is with the species, like the ones that we know that we're affecting, like when you know it's lions, when you know it's like bears, you know it's stuff that you're directly affecting because it's habitat. Okay, well you can work on stuff like that. But when it's things that like are out of your control because the species themselves aren't able to keep up with the climate change, you can't fix that.
Look, if a whole bunch of people are killing goddamn rhinoceroses just for a fucking tusk to get their
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a clear present problem.
right.
Yeah.
And if at this on the flip side, if all of Canada go out tomorrow to Red Lobster and order the Florida lobster tail, and all of a sudden the Florida lobster tail is on its last legs because you goddamn Canadians like the taste too much, that's a problem too. But,
Yeah.
So if the polar bear is on its way out and there's 20,000, 30,000, and the only pressure on them are, you know, the indigenous people up there, and they're not even doing a whole hell of a lot to them. It's just they're on their way out, then so be it.
Yeah. And the thing with the situation is that's not the story. I think that's what's making it so frustrating is that's not the story. Like it's not people going up there and shooting bears, you know?
Mhm.
Um,
And it's not the polar ice caps disappearing.
no, because like the
There's
thing
melt.
is there's melt, you know, it's just a lot of it probably has more to do with the fisheries than anything else. And a lot of what they're doing is attacking the fisheries. And it's one of those things where like, yes, you have to regulate that. You do have to regulate how much you're fishing. Here's the thing though. That's not coming from Canada. That's coming from the Europes.
No, and the United States.
And
Listen,
the United States.
Well, I mean, yeah,
We just
in our
opened up-
waters, there's lots of regulation. That's part of what killed Eastern Canada.
we just opened up a huge fishery to oil drilling in Alaska by presidential decree.
Mhm.
So, you know, there's that too. So,
Yeah. You know, it's not a bad thing to do either. It's one of those things where like, okay, a lot of people like to shit on the fisheries, like the ones that breed fish to re-release. And it's one of those things where yet again, there's money in
you're talking about fish farming.
a little bit of both.
Well, no,
A
they're
little bit of
different.
They're different, but it's a little bit of both. I'm just
You
kind
know-
of bringing that in as
There's two types, and actually this is kind of an interesting story. They're the types where they're completely self-contained, floating in the middle of the ocean or in the middle of, let's say, fresh water, and the fish are completely enclosed, and then they're fed, and they're a lot of times they're fed waste products of chicken and whatnot, and they're almost overfed, and there's such a huge concentration of them that they're off, you know, their piss and their shit and whatnot actually concentrates so dramatically that the fish aren't very good. I mean, they're literally bred for poundage, and that's it. And then there's this place in South America that they took this whole river basin and they completely turned it around, and with very little input on their part. And they even let like in doing so, they even let like the natural birds take a good 30% of them, just as a matter of doing business, and they not only completely reclaimed a area that was pretty damn damaged by a human population, but also turned it into a major a fish breeder. And with very little input, they didn't have to feed the fish or anything. And if anything, the birds came back and everything. So
yeah, they just created a better environment for them. That's what they did.
Right.
I think that's what they were trying to do up here. It's just
Yeah, they tried to. Well, they are trying still to emulate what we did in Ontario, in that we have these fish farms that are landlocked. So they are the breeding pens, but they're actually done in a quote unquote ethical manner that allows them to live a mostly natural life. And then there's harvest, there's rotation, like you would with any kind of ground-based livestock. So they're treated well. Obviously, that's not the case across the board. There are those factory farm type institutions
The salmon
as
ones are
well.
the worst.
But the smaller ones, the more quote again, using the word ethical ones, more natural ones, are doing really well here in Ontario, and I think that's a big solution to a lot of our overfishing in the oceans. Let's start doing it proper on land. We have the technology, we can build it, and we can have a good product to put out there.
Yeah. If you work with nature, you can.
Yeah, exactly. That's why these things taste so good from their natural habitat, and they've become such delicacies in some cases in the Western diet. It's not because of what they are; it's a combination of what they are and where they live and how they live and all these things. So it's going to be better. It's going to taste better. It'll be better for you.
It's all across the board for that. Yeah. The other part for the fishing too is, like I said, a lot of that is seasonal. So like I understand that,
but the lobster farms here, we get fresh Atlantic lobster year round. Who could say no to that? I did get one once from again one of the big suppliers. It was not good.
We don't get those.
They're big, but they're it doesn't matter how you cook them. They were really rubbery, as opposed to fresh Atlantic salmon. Lobster. But you can definitely, like as someone, Data. I've been a chef for most of my professional career, so I've come across these ingredients. I've tasted the difference. I don't think if I wasn't as educated and my palate wasn't as important to me in the industry, it could pass.
Right.
But as someone who is well educated on the product, you could taste the difference, and it just wasn't as good. But again, the whether it came from fishing off the coast or from one of the more ethical the more natural breeding pens, really couldn't taste a difference.
Right.
It's really good.
Yeah,
now I want lobster.
It's like I said, it's one of those things where like they just it's always going to be a problem. Like you're always going to have two sides of the coin. Like you've got one side that's doing it right, and the other side who's trying to do it right but failing miserably.
There's good and bad and everything.
Yeah.
That's how we've run as humans since the dawning of time. It's always been trial and error. So like, it's just these people who are really impatient, like Greta Thunberg.
There are no absolutes, and kids tend to think there are absolutes. So you're either good or you're bad. There is no gray.
No,
it's a tenuous balance.
It's even for guys like me right now in Alberta. Like, some people are like, we want the change right now, and they're making hasty decisions, and I'm like, pull back. I understand being angry.
Chill the fuck out, man. Smoke some of that legal ganja. You'll be fine.
You'll be fine. It's one of those things where, like, we have to work by trial and error, and a lot of the trial and error isn't like a 2-year plan. It's more like a 20-year plan.
Right.
And again, like I said to you, it's the loudmouths that we were referring to. They're more introverted, like Alberta First, which, okay, yeah, sure, but not to the degree that they are.
Right.
They just want to be their own little separate
the old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah.
Which is why I've like pulled back so much. It's like I said, there's a lot of stuff like in the streams that I've been posting. Like they're giving a lot of really good ideas. They're giving a lot of they're doing a lot of planning stages of like, okay, how can we really fix our situation? And a lot of them have pulled back. I'd say we've gotten rid of most of the more wacky ones in the group. And it's like I said, like if I keep posting them and Functional listens to them, and maybe somebody in Ontario who's like smarter than all of us combined, who has more influence, can hear it and be like, oh, you know what? They're saying a lot of stuff that we could probably do right now.
And start the ball rolling. Yeah, definitely.
you know,
Is the title of the stream Why Isn't It Friday Yet?
mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I put that in there. I was working with my keyboard and my M and my C and my X weren't working properly, so I was
You
just
have to
feeling a little
come
bit.
up with
shit.
something that didn't have any of those letters.
I thought your brother does computers. Doesn't he fix computers?
He does, but the thing is my computer it just is what it is. Data, I can't do anything with my computer at this point. It's like either I
She's a boomer with a potato.
Do you have a dishwasher in your apartment?
I do, but it doesn't work very well.
Anything you own?
I moved into this place and Data, I swear to God, everything that works here is probably about 15 years old. And everything they've replaced with dollar store stuff, even down to the curtains. But my computer, like at this point, I'd say my computer's almost 9 years old, right? So I mean, it's old as it is. It was a good computer. It doesn't handle the graphics card that I have.
You got Windows 10, right?
I got Windows 10. I didn't want Windows 10. It's just
Does he have a copy of Windows 7 Professional?
no, he doesn't.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Because putting Windows 7 Professional back on your machine would probably be a good thing.
Yeah.
Install of Windows 7 Professional would probably make your machine go from borderline.
She has been searching for metrosexual cucks too much. It's all those porn pop-ups now.
Yeah, it's covered in pops.
Well, a lot of it had to do with I had to put the pictures back on my computer, so I have to figure out how to turn that on and turn it off.
Huh?
So you know how like months ago you showed me how to.
Yeah.
I might get you to help me with it afterwards. It's just one of those things. I have to learn how to turn it on and turn it off.
Right.
Because there are times when I need to know what pictures I'm posting. It's one of those things where because I'm actually doing internet now, I can't just bet on what this photo is based off of my memory.
Well, yeah, but okay. On the top right corner of any window has a little icon there where it gives you details. It's like options of how you see the things in there. And there should be a extra large, which in a picture format should give you at least the thumbnails of those pictures.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about the other thing, turning off all the bells and whistles, that I can walk you through pretty quick.
Yeah, I'll do that afterwards. It's just this time I have to write down how it was I did it, just because if I need to turn it off, I need to turn it off. But it's one of those things where I'm sitting there like I really need to take Arc off my computer. It's like I have it there because I like to play the single player every once in a while, but it's eating everything.
But it shouldn't. In other words, just loading a game is just taking up space on the hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't that much space. I mean, unless your hard drive is completely full.
It is, but Arc takes up a lot of it.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm saying that because Functional has a proper computer, and he's still probably like, I understand, Jen. I wouldn't do it myself because I don't need to, but I understand, Jen.
Well, if the people in the audience, the whole three of them out there, want to know, you right click on what is it? This PC in Windows 10 or computer in Windows 7. You go to properties, and then in the properties window on the top.
I'll have you know, Data, we have 9 people watching.
Okay, in the top left corner of the properties window of Windows or the computer is advanced system settings. And when you click on that, you get a performance choice. And when you click on that, you have all the list of all the bells and whistles in Windows that you can turn on and off, which means like the pretty lights, the pretty colors, the three-dimensional effects, the moving effects, all that in just the UI, in just the user interface.
Well, the other reason I'm targeting Arc is, to be honest, I probably flooded myself with too many mods on it. I mean, I don't use them all, but just having them on my computer is probably just like, hey,
I would probably, if I was to redo your computer, I would save everything you wanted to save off onto a jump drive. Then I would completely eliminate the actual they call it the what the fuck is it called now? It was
Welcome to Data's Tech Corner.
Yeah, it was the not the format, the it was
Hey, Sanguine!
it's basically God damn it.
Well, while you try to remember that,
Yeah, right.
let's sign off here.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna shut down this show now, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all for coming. Data, thank you for showing up, being
Thank
our
you
guest.
for having me. Thank you, everybody, and it was great to be here. And see you later.
Yep.
Thanks, chat, for showing up. Thanks to my co-host, Jen.
Thank you, Rebel, for joining us. Just so you guys know, we are going to probably update our streams for next week because Bloodwing will be back for his Tuesday and Thursday shows.
That regular bat time, regular bat channel.
Yeah.
We're on Redneck Radio.
And I think on Saturday we should all flood his Red Wings show and just remind him that we weren't stealing his spot. We were keeping it warm, which he knows.
He's back Saturday, yeah?
And one of these days I'm going to kidnap his son on one of my streams because J-Kid is like my non-brother from the US that I've never met before, but I like to call him Ho-Ho because I don't know of any redneck food slurs.
We should see if he'll have us on Saturday.
That would be amazing. That would be. I'll ask him.
Yeah.
And like I said, we'll work out a time, and you never know. Maybe we'll get a Bloodwing visit someday when he's got his schedule more figured out.
Yeah, for sure.
But like I said, if you guys have any articles that you want to send us, by all means, it helps me out because like I might have taken a little bit of time off. Like I look for them. And I read them, and I'm like, "You're the same shit I've been reading for a while." So
that's why I'm here. I've got so much shit to talk about. Oh my god!
I just don't want to. I don't want to continually hammer. Like, I mean, I don't mind bringing up Wexit because it is still valid.
No, it's still
a real.
It's a big
thing.
topic du jour.
Rebel.
We're just not getting the coverage because we're no Britain, you know.
Like the only news site who is covering Wexit right now is the Rebel News. I can't be happy about that, but I can be because at the very least, Ezra is a lawyer, and he has been telling them off quite a couple times in his speeches. He's just been like, "You can't do this. You can't do this. You can't do this. You can't." He's actually been fairly good for the movement. So as much as I will call them out on their bullshit because it is the Rebel News. They've had some really good discussions. So I highly recommend that if you want to know what's going on from their perspective, at least watch their streams. I know Kian is kind of an asshole and not a lot of people really like him. But Sheila's really good. Like she'll give you information from the farmers that you won't hear. That's why I really like her because she will tell you things about the small rural towns in Alberta where they're being completely screwed. I knew it, but like I said, it's information that you actually see, but don't take them with a grain of salt because they are a corporation. They are one-sided. They've been honest about it. They have been in the legal system, so they do have a good grasp of how Canada works as a legal system, but they are biased, very biased.
Yeah, of course.
But I appreciate the fact that they're honest about it. Which I can't say for anywhere else in Canada because I don't know who's taken the money, and I know who some have taken the money, but I don't want to bring it up every time I do a stream.
Partition, that's the word.
Well,
Anyway,
and on that note.
And I do have works on the stream. I now have probably the potential to have a stream with like 3 French guys and 1 Canadian. Maybe I'll bring Functional in so we'll balance it a little bit. So Functional on one side be like, what the fuck are these French people saying? So
We'll incite them to kill each other.
I've got a potential lefty from Quebec, and I've got a potential I know he's full up PPC and radical PPC a little bit, I would say, Magic, and then we've got a fellow from France. So at some point, Sam, I'm going to bring you on, but beware, you're going to be dealing with Quebec. So.
Oh no, Sam says but he sounds like a Brit.
But yes, on that note.
It's no Mexicans, party time, excellent.
And remember, it's Canada, because they can.
Whore Canada, whore Canada, whore Canada.
And yet again, one of these days I'll bring on our famous Canadian, and he'll talk to us all about Canadian penises. Anyway, night night.
Bye, everybody.
They